It's round 2 of the Blancpain Endurance Series. Welcome to Navarra in northern Spain. David Addison and Hayley Coxon here, looking forward to what's going to be a fantastic 3-hour race. The grid is assembling, and this circuit only opened last year is one that is fast. It's got some very tight and twisty bits to it as well, and with 30 cars on the grid, it's going to be a very busy afternoon for the drivers. In most cases, you've got 3 drivers per car. In some, you've got 2, and the grid is starting to form in anticipation of this second round of the championship. It's a very spectacular backdrop, that's for sure, to this circuit, not far from Bilbao. And although it's a busy weekend of motorsport here in Spain, the fans are out to watch a grid full of dream cars. 11 different brands represented this weekend in the Blancpain Endurance Series. The temperature not as hot as it was yesterday. It's a bit overcast as well. There is a threat of rain. Just looking up to the skies, there's a little bit of blue at the moment over the grid, but there is this threat of some rain as well. Whether that's going to be a big problem, well, we'll have to wait and see in the course of 3 hours. Hayley Coxon is down on the grid, and with her for the pole-sitting car, Blancpain.
But the Audi's certainly been performing well here in Navarra, but can you turn it into the win?
I think we have to try to, because here the car is running really well, and also we don't have the issue like in Monza with the splash and dash. So we are not using so much fuel. I think the setup is okay. I think the team and the drivers are in a very good shape, so we are second in the championship. I think the pressure is high, but when we don't make mistakes, I think we can do it, yes.
Thank you.
And the T-shirt there in memory of his friend Alain Hammond, amateur racer who recently passed away, and Blancpain wants to win the race for him as much as for the team. Well, there is the grid. You're looking down on Audis, Ferraris, Porsches, Ginettas, BMW new this weekend in the shape of the Z4. Ford is on the grid as well, and you've got Aston Martin, you've got Lamborghini. It is a fantastic entry. Nissan 370 and the Maserati MC Gran Turismo are on the grid as well. And pole position after the 3-part qualifying this morning went the way of the number 32 Belgian Audi Club R8 LMS. The man that will start is Stefano Otelli. The man that did the time is Felipe Albuquerque. But as I say, there is this threat of rain. There are 1 or 2 gaps on the grid as well. So 1 or 2 cars still to form up on this grid, but it will be 30 cars when we get ready to go. Well, the man that is the brains behind all of this is Stefan Rattel, and he also is down on the grid. Let's hear from him with Hayley.
Stefan, here we are back at Navarra, and what a grid we have today.
Yeah, good competition. Huh? It's good to see, as usual, different brands on the first rows, and I think it's going to be a very exciting weekend.
And Michel, it must be great to have the Endurance Series come to your track.
Yeah, again, like last year, but this year it's like what I was doing with Stefan a few years ago. It's the same atmosphere, same number of cars. I think it's beautiful. So many brands, so many cars on the grid. Racing is about many cars and many horsepower.
Thank you.
Michel Ligenet, the man behind this circuit, and somebody who used to race in early days of the FIA GT Championship, so he can look at this from both sides, now as a promoter and a circuit owner, and of course also from a driver's perspective as well. Right, those are the gaps being filled up. The 430 Scuderia Ferraris now making their way onto the grid, and if you think back to the opening round of the championship at Monza, it was a very high-speed race, and a lot of it came down to fuel as much as reliability. We had a few cars in strife with punctures, others had mechanical woes, like, for example, Michael Bartel's Ferrari, which had a starter motor problem, and through it all, metronomically, came the Autolando Sport Porsche to win outright in the hands of Paolo Roberti, Gianluca Roda and Raffaele Giammaria. Well, that's the championship leading car, and after qualifying earlier on in the day, it will start third on the grid. There it is, in fact, in the bottom left corner of the screen, the blue and white Porsche number 9, which is going to be started by Gianluca Roda, who did the first stint at Monza. And if you think back to that opening round, you remember the car fell away down to the bottom end of the top 10, but it was able to go to the full 60 minutes per hour on a tank of fuel. You have to make 2 regulation pit stops in this. The teams want to combine those driver changes on the hour mark if they can with refueling, because that will try and save you an extra stop for fuel. And you can't really do a splash and dash in this form of racing because of a regulation that says if you are refueling and the driver is in the car, the belts must be undone, so in case of fire he can leap out pretty quickly. Well, therefore, as soon as you've done the refueling, you've got to waste a bit of time strapping the driver back in. Big problem. Big problem for this team in qualifying. This is 24, Mark Hayek and Peter Cox with the Lamborghini Gallardo. Mark Hayek, the CEO of Blancpain, the championship sponsor. And when Mark was out on track in Q1, a massive engine failure. The team has worked very hard to put a new engine in that car in readiness for the race, but it means that Mark, along with Peter Cox, are going to have to start right at the back of the grid, and they've left themselves with a lot of hard work to do. Well, Peter Cox certainly is in for a long afternoon. He'll do the bulk of the driving in that car, that's for sure, but Mark Hayek gets quicker and quicker all the time, so don't rule out that car for another class win, which is indeed what it scored at Monza in the opening round of the championship. And the Blancpain-backed Writer Run Lamborghini runs in the Pro-Am Cup. As I say, could well be a class winner despite starting at the back, because in 3 hours anything can happen. Looking at the back of the grid where the bulk of the GT4 cars are, and there's good variety in that element of the race as well. Lotus taking on Nissan, Maserati and Ginetta and Aston Martin as well. And it was the Lotus that was victorious at Monza, the Piscopo, Mansell and Mansell brothers car. Let's go back to the grid. Let's join Haley again.
Peter, it's great to see that you made it on the grid. Is all okay with the car?
Well, we still have a problem with the alternator, but it's a fantastic job by Writer Engineering to get the car out anyway. So we are pleased for that. We're on the grid, but we still seem to have a small problem. So, but we don't know. Maybe they can fix it now, and then we'll see. It's a long race, so we'll see.
Thank you.
Peter Cox, hugely experienced single-seater racer, sports car racer, touring car racer, and let's see whether or not, if they can cure that alternator problem, he's going to be able to drag that car up the order. It's going to be a difficult task, that's for sure, but if anybody can do it, Peter Cox is the man. The championship running with 4 different classes. You have the Pro Cup, as the name says, for the pro drivers. Pro-Am, this mix of a gun for hire and a quick amateur racer. The gentleman drivers part of the championship, the Gentleman's Trophy, which is for, again, a team made up purely of the gentleman racers, and then there is the GT4 competition as well. But this weekend there's an extra class within the Gentleman Trophy, and that's the GT3 Cup, which is, if you like, the entry-level class for gentleman racers, but in older machinery. So, for example, there's one representative this weekend. It's the 911 GT3 Cup, not the Cup S, which is the newer car, runs without ABS, but it's an older car getting into the championship. There's the Ginetta that Pierre Lemonte will start, the G50, the 3.5-litre engine car from the Leeds constructor that was built to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Ginetta, and that is a car that you might remember went up in flames rather spectacularly at Monza, but the De Lorenzi racing team have been able to repair the car, and it's gone pretty well this weekend. Had a spin, in fact, in Q1, but it's gone pretty well over the course of the weekend so far. This car, I'm afraid to say, has had all sorts of problems. The Nissan, which has had a gearbox drama, a misfire, fuel pickup problem, wheel speed sensors, almost you name it, it's happened to the car. Now they've got the reliability sorted, it is going quicker, and Alex Buncombe will start lining up alongside Pierre Lemonte then, and they are on the 14th row of the grid as we work our way forward then to this very impressive front row where you've got Audi and Ferrari. Stefano Ortelli lining up alongside Jack Gerber, whose car was qualified by Matt Griffin. In 36 is Luigi Emiliani, and that is the car I was just talking about, being the older spec 911 GT3 Cup, and Luigi Emiliani sharing with Sergio Negroni, and he will start on the outside of the 13th row of the grid. Number 70 there on the inside of that row is Eduardo Piscopo, starting in the Lotus that won GT4 at Monza, and the 2 co-drivers there, the brothers Mansell, Leo and Greg. Greg, perhaps it's fair to say, is the quicker of the 2, but Leo Mansell always does a very good, solid job. Perhaps not spectacular, but just gets on with it, does good lap times, and is a very safe pair of hands these days for long-distance racing like this. The other Lotus that we have on the grid is entered by the Lotus Driving Academy, Laurence Frey, Rolf Maritz and Freddie Bath, who took the GT4 pole position. Freddie Bath will start, and lining up alongside there you can see Georges Cabin, who was a class winner at Monza. Fabien Michel driving with him this weekend, so change of co-driver. It was Greg Gilbert who drove at Monza, but the very jolly Georges Cabin, certainly a potential class winner once again, because he runs within the Pro-Am Cup and lines up on the 12th row of the grid. As I say, there's great variety in the Blancpain Endurance Series. So many different brands, 11 in total represented, more to come. There's McLaren on its way, there's Mercedes on its way, due to have a Corvette or 2 as well. And the entry for the next round of the championship, which is the Spa 24 Hours, is getting on for something like 60 cars, if not more. It's going to be a superb race, that, and with 4 drivers per car, it's going to be like a who's who of international sports car racing as well. Grid starting to empty now. The VIPs have made their way off the grid. There's Ricardo Bravo's Lamborghini that is going to be shared with his fellow Portuguese drivers Lourenço de Vega and Duarte Felix da Costa, and that starts on the 7th row of the grid, in fact, that car, which is an all Lamborghini row, because alongside in 45 is the Belgian driver Andrea Barlesi, and that is the car, indeed you see it now in its Gulf livery, the team masterminded by Jean-Pierre Valentini, and it's going to be Andrea Barlesi who will start, the 3rd driver of which is Fabien Giraud, once upon a time a Formula 3000 hot shoe, involved in the original McLaren GT project. He was a McLaren racer for a time, most recently seen in the Middle Eastern-based speed car series. But Fabian Jura, very experienced driver indeed. So here in northern Spain, the grid, as I say, is being emptied, and very shortly we will be in business for the rolling lap, the rolling start lap. 38 is a car that's had all sorts of problems this weekend. Giacomo Petrovelli starts. The real root of the problem for the British Scuderia Vittoria team was that Ferrari came along before pre-qualifying yesterday, downloaded some new software, which just didn't work. All the other Ferrari teams seem to be okay, but Scuderia Vittoria having real problems. It would not talk to the ECU. That gave them a chronic misfire. They think they've got around the problem. Fingers are well and truly crossed. In car number 4, though, there you've got Henri Moser starting in the Aston Martin that he shares with Gilles Vannelet. And the third driver in that car, Fred Makovici, who, as we saw at Monza, is very quick indeed. And Fred, of course, has had some good results in the GT1 World Championship, as well as being quick in the GT3 European Championship and in the Blancpain Endurance Series as well. So although the Hexis AMR Astons perhaps not as well suited to this circuit as they were to the fast Monza track for the opening round of the championship, you rule them out at your peril. Now Jack Gerber, looking down onto the front row of the grid in the red Ferrari, there it is with the South African flag on the roof, is going to find the opening few laps pretty hard work. Basically, he's got to keep out of trouble and not lose too much ground. Matt Griffin, who is the co-driver, the man that qualified the car on the front row of the grid, of course is the quicker of the two, and he has been given the real task of trying to make that car come back into contention when he gets on board. So Jack Gerber, it's fair to say, will probably do the minimum driving behind the wheel. Matt Griffin, who really by rights should have been a winner at Snetterton last weekend in British GT, didn't quite pay off for him thanks to a spinning back marker who spun across the front of Matt, and there was contact and it damaged the radiator of the M-Tech Ferrari he was driving last weekend, and therefore the car was a retirement. But Matt Griffin, certainly he's going to be up there when he's behind the wheel. He set the fastest lap of anybody of the race at Monza, by the way, so his speed, if you were questioning it, absolutely undeniable. The very rapid Irishman, certainly one to watch. We're on the formation lap, the green flag lap now. It's a rolling start, of course, for GT racing, so the pace car leads them around. At the end of this lap, it will dive for the pit lane, and if the race director is satisfied with everybody's position, then we'll be in business. The team's looking to do round about 34, 35 laps within an hour. And I posed the question earlier of a couple of the Ferrari teams, can you go a full hour on fuel? Michael Bartel said to me, yeah, no problem. This circuit, totally different characteristic in terms of being on and off the throttle. The Monza, which was a real drain on the fuel, their problem, he says, is really working on the reliability of the 458. It's new this year, and it's still undergoing development. They're not running it in any other championship, the Vita 4-1 team, whereas some squads do run in different categories. But so they're working on reliability really in just these races. Other teams, Scuderia Vittoria, say, we're not sure if we can go now. We'll find out. Front of the grid, then, is Ortelli Audi, Gerber Ferrari. Second row, Roda Porsche, Kekler Ferrari. Third row, Julien Juste Ferrari, Ludovic Badet, his teammate Ferrari. Then on the fourth row of the grid, you've got the Nick Homerson Ferrari, and alongside is Andrea Piccini starting in Audi 33. The fifth row of the grid, Jeroen de Boer's BMW, and Marcus Paltela will start in the number 44. Henri Moser goes first in the number 4 Aston Martin. Giacomo Petrovelli for Scuderia Vittoria is alongside. Then Andrea Barlesi, the Belgian, in the Lamborghini. Lorenzo Bero de Vega lines up alongside. Row 8 is the Finn, Mika Vähämäki. Jan Clare's Hexis AMR Aston is alongside. Then the 9th row, Stefano Borges Porsche, Eugenio Amos in the 25 Lamborghini. Row 10, Eric Cairol lines up alongside Philippe Scherer. And then the 11th row of the grid, Aston Martin's Ludovic Sounier goes first. And in 37, it's Stefano Biancioni, who had a big crash yesterday. Row 12, Georges Cabin for Ruffier Racing goes first. And Freddie Bath in the GT4 pole-sitting Lotus. Eduardo Piscopo lines up next alongside Luigi Emiliani. The 14th row of the grid is where you find the Nissan in the hands of Alex Buncombe and Piero Leonta in the Ginetta. Row 15 should be Giuseppe Pasquale to start in 88, and Andrina Guga for Gentle Swiss Racing alongside. And then at the back, Mark Hayek will go first in the number 24 Lamborghini. I was hesitating a little about the number 88 Aston Martin, because that I thought was a car that wasn't on the grid. It was going slowly towards the end of qualifying, but it may be that that is a car that is in trouble. So in the WRT Belgian Audi Club Garage, Bert Langin watches and waves, and it's his car in the hands of Stefano Ortelli, a Le Mans winner, a Spa 24-hour winner, a multiple GT race winner who will start on pole position, and he should be able to grab the lead, whereas, to be fair to him, Jack Gerber will lose places because he's got much quicker drivers around him. But it's as soon, really, as you can get Matt Griffin into that car that its true pace will be shown. Agonisingly slow crawl here for the drivers coming up out of turn 13 towards turn 14. It's up to the front row drivers really to control the pace once the pace car has peeled in. But this is very slow indeed. At least they're in a neat formation, but the downside to this is that somebody quick at the back comes around the corner, has to stand on the brakes, and suddenly all hell breaks loose. But I think they've managed to avoid any drama, and so now it is up to Stefano Ortelli to lead them round. So the French driver, based in Monaco these days, on the inside of the front of the grid. You've got this very, very fast first sequence of corners, turns 1, 2 and 3 in very quick succession, where you've got to do everything at once, brake, change down, turn, all at the same time. And Stefano Ortelli then in the pole sitting out. He leads the cars up now towards the start of the race. The lights on the gantry will be extinguished. Stefano Ortelli starts to break away. Jack Gerber doesn't really go with him. The red lights are on at the moment. As soon as they go out, the race will be underway. The lights go green, so we're in business. Ortelli leads the way. Jack Gerber gets onto the power, tries to go with him as they thunder underneath the start gantry down towards turn 1. Gianluca Roda in the Porsche there, looking in the middle, trying to come through on the gap, though, which he has done ahead of Jack Gerber. And then in 4th place, Frank Kekler, number 1, as they all file their way through turns 1, 2 and 3. 1 or 2 cars running wide, including, by the look of it, Eugenio Amos with the number 25 white Lamborghini. So the cars now work their way downhill for the first time, out of turn 4 towards turn 5, which is a long looping left-hander towards a very tricky turn 6 and 7S. And there, Mark Hayek carving his way up from the back of the grid as the BMW Z4 of Jeroen de Boer, the Dutch driver, tries to squeeze up on the inside and try, in so doing, to get ahead of number 2, Nick Homerson, to no avail. Ortelli leading, Roda is second, and Jack Gerber doing a very good job at the moment, hanging on to 3rd place as the cars turn their way through turn 6, then the next tricky corner at 7, which if you get it wrong and get the power down too quickly at 6, you'll skate wide at, over the curb, over the grass, and then this corner now coming down towards turn 9, very tight indeed, and it's caught out the unwary over the course of the weekend as Jack Gerber loses a place through on the inside. There goes Ludovic Badet, number 20. It's another of the 458s, run by a different team though, and then his teammate follows him through as well. That's Julien Juste going through and diving up on the inside of the 4GT Marcus Paltela. Jack Gerber trying to keep out of trouble, settle into his own pace, but you can see now the car that was qualified by Matt Griffin, second fastest, falling down the order. Turning their way through turn 13 then for the first time. In this very busy field, the GT4 cars just starting to drop away a little bit towards the rear of the field. On board now with the number 3 Aston Martin, it's Jan Clary at the wheel, and he's got the BMW Z4 right ahead of him. Jeroen de Boer looking for a way through on the inside of the Ferrari there, but the Vita 4-1 Ferrari 458 able to close the door and hang on to the place. Over the line, end of lap 1, number 32 leading the way, then Stefano Ortelli. Second in the Porsche is Gianluca Roda, and then third Frank Kekler going well. You can see that the leaders just starting to break away a little bit. Battles are raging on lower down the order here as they turn their way towards turn 1. The 430 diving up on the inside there, moving ahead of Eugenio Amos in the Lamborghini, and there's Mark Hayek on the inside of the Lotus. The Lamborghini goes through, that's another place picked off as well. 37 Porsche after its accident yesterday in pre-qualifying, trying to work up from the rear of the grid as well. Ginetta versus Aston Martin, two very different British brands together here. 73, the Ginetta G50, Piero Limonta just ahead of Giuseppe De Pasquale. And they're being squeezed a little bit to the outside, coming through turn 7. The Hexis AMR Aston number 4, started by Henri Moser. And in fact now he's under pressure from the Lamborghini of Andrea Barlesi. Those two together just now coming onto this straight down to turn 9. Race leader Stefano Ortelli just starting to try to break away a little bit, was making a look to the inside of Jack Gerber. In 33 there was Andrea Piccini. He was a winner a week ago at the Sachsenring in the GT1 World Championship, now adapting to GT3 Audis and looking for a way past the South African. You can see that Jack Gerber's holding them up just a little bit at the moment, because ahead of him are pulling away number 40 Marcus Paltela, and 45 the Andrea Barlesi driven Lamborghini, keeping at bay the Aston Martin as they come towards us. 1 or 2 running wide in the background, and Piccini now getting a bit toey, looking for a way past Jack Gerber, because he can see the quicker cars getting away up front. Downhill they come into turn 14, and then the road climbs to 15. Very tight corner onto the pit straight, and you've got to get a good run through here to keep the momentum for this long slog past the pits. Over the line comes the race leader Stefano Ortelli, but the battle is building up for second place. Look, Porsche versus Ferrari. Gianluca Roda just ahead of Frank Kekler there. The young German driver right on the tail of the Italian, going well at the moment, because if you think back to Monza in the opening laps, he was dropping down the order. Here he's hanging on to second place, and Frank Kekler looking for a way past. In 4th spot, number 20, Ludovic Badet, who's the real gun in that car. He's the quickest of the 3 drivers, making his way now down towards turns 5 and then through to 6 and 7. That uphill sequence, that S. Kekler on the back of Roda in the Porsche now. Drops it down a gear, turns in, gentle with the power. Too soon and the car will wash out, but you can see now Roda is holding up Kekler. This is for 2nd, 3rd and soon 4th and 5th places, because they'll all be together, and it's playing into the hands of Stefano Ortelli. The Frenchman then is pulling away. Both the Audis ran well at Monza, both of them had punctures, and that in part was what cost them dear, and already in trouble I'm afraid is Porsche number 37 in the pit lane. Stefano Bianconi there behind the wheel at the moment as Kettler tries to get the run up on the inside of Roda, almost contact between the two. Kettler drops back just a little bit then, made that move and it didn't work, so he's lost a length, which he claws back again onto braking for turn 11. But Kettler now needs to get on with this because he's being caught by those behind it in a bit of a wobble there. Number 18 Porsche coming down towards turn 9. Stefano Borgi just about hangs on to it. Look at this for second, third, fourth and fifth places. Fantastic battle building up, and if they're not careful they might be caught by the charging Marcus Paltela in the Ford GT behind them. Gianluca Roda then having to make the car pretty wide at the moment. Frank Kettler right on his tail as they work their way through turn 15, and you can see the way now that the Ferraris behind have caught up. Ludovic Badet right there and taking his teammate with him as well, because number 10, which is Julien Jus, is on the tail as they come across the line. Through goes the Audi in the lead. In second spot, it is Roda in the Porsche. Third, Frank Kettler. Fourth over the line is Badet. Fifth in number 10, Ferrari, right on his tail now, Julien Jus. And look at this great galaxy of cars pouring over the line. Ferrari, then Audi, then Ferrari. You've got in the middle of all this BMW, there's Lamborghini in the mix as well, and the Aston Martin. That's the run to turn 1. Stefano Borghi's orange Porsche trying to come back at them, and is that Mark Hayek just slowing in the background a little bit? Don't think the pace was quite there in that car anymore, and we're getting a report that number 53 is losing fluid somewhere out on the circuit. There's one car starting to just drop liquid, and that's going to be another drama for the drivers that they could well do without in these early stages. Number 4 Aston, Henri Moser, looking to try and gain a place, but he's also under pressure because you've got the two Rhinos energy drink backed Lamborghinis right up behind him. Marcus Paltela coming towards us now, his way up towards turn number 9, and the Aston Martin losing places then, so he's managing to keep the two orange Lambos at bay for the moment, but Henri Moser falling back through the pack here. Henri Moser, it is fair to say, he's not as quick as his co-drivers, but he's normally able to do a pretty manful job. But for the moment, he's losing places, whereas Gianluca Roda is doing a great job of hanging on to second place. The leader is getting away, no question about that. That's Stefan Ortelli pulling clear, but Gianluca Roda now with pretty wide elbows, keeping Frank Kettler at bay. Kettler closing up once again as they come towards turn 15. Can he get a good run here? More aerodynamic Ferrari, a newer car as well, still in its early development really. The 458 comes over the line. Mikhail Bartels, one of the drivers of that car, indeed the player manager, it's his team, saying to me at lunchtime that their real aim is to get this car reliable for the next round at the Spa 24 Hours, which is very important to that team in order to score a win. Leaders have gone through them. We've now done 4 laps, and we're looking for round about 34-ish within the hour. If you can do that number, then you're going to be good to go a full hour on a tank of fuel, and many of the teams are pretty confident about that. The car that's losing fluid is 88, in fact, and that's the GT4 Aston Martin. As into the pit lane comes the number 3 Aston, and that is the car in the hands to begin with of Jan Claret. So number 3 shown as being in the pit lane, and off have gone 2 of them, including 88 Aston we were just talking about. Number 7 has had a spin as well, and that is Mika Vähämäki, who rejoins now, but way off the road. In fact, no, it's Ludovic Sunier's GT3 Aston, isn't it, that's gone off at turn 3. Well beached in the gravel there. This is the fight for second, but I just wonder whether, with that car being off the road, we're going to get a safety car. There is number 3, Aston Martin then, being pushed away. Jan Claret's Hexis AMR car, and that is very bad news indeed. This is the car that Julien Rodriguez and Pierre-Bryce Mena share with him, but effectively now it is out of the equation altogether. However, soon they can get it back onto the road. It's going to lose the best part of a lap at the very least, and it's going to tumble down the order, but I just get the feeling it's a long pit stop, given that they need it in the garage, not on the pit apron. So it's Ortelli who leads the way. In second spot is Gianluca Roda. Their third is number 1, that's Frank Kettler, a car that he shared with Nico Verdonk and then Mikhail Bartels, the one-time Lotus Formula 1 racer who replaced Johnny Herbert in the 1991 season, but never actually qualified for a race. Over the line, Audi leading Porsche, leading Ferrari. That's the top 5, and you see the 2 red and white Sofrev Autosport Promotion cars running together, with at the moment Ludovic Badet ahead of Julien Jus, and then in 6th spot, but falling back a bit now, is the Ford GT in the hands of Marcus Paltela. Gianluca Roda then hanging on for the moment at least to his second place as he works his way now down towards turn 4. There's a top 6 confirmed on the screen with a Ford in 6th spot, but I'm afraid to say that Aston Martin not having a good race for the moment in the form of Hexis AMR in the pit lane. and number 8 Ludovic Sunya is GT3 spec Aston Martin still in the gravel. Now, whether that was a legacy of the fluid being dropped by car 88, not sure, but either way, we'd seen a Lamborghini spin. Maybe it was a spin in avoidance for Ludovic Sunya that put him off the road, but either way, that car is beached in the gravel. As here, look, GT4 mixing it with GT3. You've got the Nissan, the 2 Lotuses, and running with them as well here is the Lamborghini number 31, diving up on the inside as it should, really, because that's a GT3 spec car. Georges Cabin, true gentleman racer, working his way past the 2 Lotus Evora GT4s there. Number 70, Eduardo Piscopo, very quick former single-seater racer, turning his attention to GTs this year, class winner at Monza. And Leo and Greg Mansell, Nigel's 2 sons, sharing the car with him. Behind, you've got 61 Freddie Barth in the sister Evora GT4. Gianluca Roda is still hanging on to that second place ahead of Frank Kekler. The gap between the top 2 now, Ortelli and Roda, is up to 3.2 seconds. And not surprisingly, Stefano Ortelli has done the best lap of the race, down to turn 15. This, the end of lap 6. Over the timing line go the race leaders, and once again Frank Kekler is almost near enough to think about making a move heading up towards turns 1, 2 and 3, this next sequence, all of them coming in very quick succession. Sort of turn right, turn again at 2 and then turn again to get round turn 3, but that is where they'll find this car beached in the gravel. You can see the classification at the bottom of the screen, looking good at the moment in 10th place, first time out in the BMW Z4 of Faster Racing. That's a team going the distance with just 2 drivers rather than 3. Well, Jan Clare very frustrated with the Aston Martin being in the pit lane. Let's go to the pits and join Haley Coxon.
Jan, can you update on what's happening with the Aston Martin?
I don't know exactly. I have the contact at the last corner, and for the moment I was a problem at the front wheel, because when I have the steering wheel like this, I go straight, but I don't know where is the problem for the moment.
Thank you.
So contact has triggered it all, and it being a lengthy stop, as there Kekler finally goes through on the inside and back, second place. He's been building up to that for many a lap, and now looks straight away at turn 9, having gone through. Now that he's released, he starts to build the lead, making his way then clear of the Porsche, puts him up into second place, but you can see that he's just building that gap, and Gianluca Roda now is on the defensive once again, because right on his tail is number 20 Ludovic Badet, turning their way through turn 13 here, and the Porsche once again is like the cork in the bottle. Frank Kekler having finally made the move, streaking clear, and so Gianluca Roda is trying to defend for all he's worth. It's probably easier to do it here because it's such a tight and twisty circuit, whereas at Monza, which is a real slipstreamer, he started to fall down the order pretty early on. Over the line they come. Ludovic Badet then in number 20. Ferrari is going to be looking for a way by. Number 10 is next in the queue. That's Julien Juste, both of them very quick former single-seater racers. And look at the gap, the leading 5 has now built up over the 6th place Ford GT. Massive gap between them. 7 seconds between 5th and 6th. 1st to 6th is now getting on for 13. Those yellow repeater lights flashing as the number 8 Aston Martin is still dragged out of the gravel up at turn 4. The good news is no safety car needed, nor did we have one in the entire 3-hour race at Monza. So Roda having to defend that 3rd place, and the 2 sister Ferraris working together here, not fighting each other, running at a pace, which is what they need to do. Keeping out of trouble, in part, is one of the names of the game in this championship. The other is, of course, having to dodge around back markers once we get to Lapri. Matt Griffin saying earlier on at the press conference that the standard of driving is pretty high in this, so all the back markers, when they're being lapped, are on their toes anyway. They know what to do, they know to keep out of the way of the quicker cars. But because of the nature of the circuit, getting past the back markers will be pretty difficult at certain parts of the circuit, and you can guarantee that some drivers are going to lose out in the battle. So the order at the moment is Audi, Ferrari, Porsche, the top 3, Ferrari 4th, and then we've now got Ferrari in 5th place. In 6th overall is the Ford GT, and in Pro Cup you can see the way that it stands currently. With not only the great battling going on, but also a variety of makes as well. Change for the Ferraris, because they're diving up on the inside goes 38 Giacomo Petrovelli ahead of Jack Gerber, so that's Scuderia Vittoria going ahead of AF Corsa. Jack Gerber losing another place, and now he's going to be on his toes, because right up behind him in 45 is Andrea Barlesi, flashing his lights down, coming up on the inside. Lamborghini alongside Ferrari, they lean on each other. Jack Gerber gets forced out wide, he gets sideways, and he loses a place as well to the BMW and the Aston Martin that come diving past him. Very opportunistic move indeed there by number 4, and that was Henri Moser scything his way through. So Jack Gerber has lost, what, 3 places, possibly more in all of that. Squeezed out wide, and look at this, Barlesi having to defend now because the BMW Z4 right with him. Over the line they come. Jeroen de Boer looking for a gap on the inside, which he's got. Now, has he got the grunt in the BMW to stay alongside the Lamborghini? No, he hasn't. Andrea Barlesi fends him off going up towards turn 1, so the Gulf liveried Lamborghini hangs onto the pace, and thankfully they got all of that done just before they hit the yellow flag zone. Barlesi defending, but the BMW Z4, very quick car within the European GT3 Championship, right on the back of the Lamborghini. Meantime, in the GT4 contest, the two Lotuses now arguing over second, have got themselves together. Eduardo Piscopo ahead here of Freddie Bath, who was on pole in the class, but after not such a great start, has dropped back behind not only the similar car in the hands there of Piscopo, but also the class-leading Nissan of Alex Buncombe. Still Ludovic Badet keeping Julien Juste behind him. Gianluca Roda hanging on to third place overall in the Gentleman's Trophy at the moment. You've got the number 22 Ferrari, Philippe Scherer, leading the way from Georges Cavin with his Lamborghini, and then Stefano Bianconi's repaired Porsche running in third in the class. And there, back on the track, spitting gravel as it goes, is number 8 Aston Martin, Ludovic Sunier, after a rather time-consuming spin, but the Belgian back on track then. And an experienced driver, really. He's done quite a lot of Belgian touring car, Belgian GT racing in his time, made that mistake, went off the road, and that has cost the car now something like 3 laps. Now the leading Audi being caught by the Ferrari, the gap down by half a second last time. Frank Kechler starting to close on Stefano Ortelli, and the car that Frank Kechler drives, there it is, number 1, run by Michael Bartels. He's in the pit lane. Let's hear from him with Haley.
Michael, Frank's gotten off to a great start, but there's still a long way to go.
It's the early stages of the race. There's still 2 hours, 45 minutes to go. And so I think the race, like in the past 3-hour races, will be decided who is consistent, who is doing no mistakes. But it's still a long way to go.
Thank you.
Familiar colours for Michael Bartels, but a different team name for this year. Vita 4-1 is the name of the team rather than Vitaphone Racing, although he was saying to me that Vitaphone is still in the background, looking perhaps at an involvement in the future in the GT1 World Championship, depending on whether Michael Bartels is able to get a team back into that championship. He's the reigning GT1 World Champion, don't forget, but turning his attention to this championship for this year. And the main aim for the team really is to win the Spa 24 Hours, something he's done in the past with his Vitaphone Racing squad. This is the fight for third. It's still Gianluca Roda's wide Porsche keeping at bay the 458 Ferraris. Number 20 in the hands of Ludovic Badet, number 10 tucked up behind him, Julien Juste, and they're just starting now to squabble amongst themselves as well, aren't they, rather than purely attacking the Porsche. But you can see the way that Roda is holding them up, because the Frank Kechler Ferrari up the road is getting away all the time. Frank Kechler has now done the fastest lap of the race. The gap continues to come down between him and Stefano Ortelli. They're about to come across the line. It was down by half a second on the previous lap, and now as they go through, in fact, perversely, the gap just creeps up by 1/10 of a second, so Kechler loses out ever so slightly, possibly a legacy of traffic. For 4th place, I think Julien Juste now has decided he needs to get on with this and get past his teammate, because if Badet can't find a way past Roda, maybe Juste could have better luck. So the two of them are together. Because they're squabbling, they've just dropped back from the blue and white Auto Lando Sport Porsche ahead. That means now, of course, that Roda is able to take his own lines, go quicker, and so busy is Badet defending that he's going slower, just losing touch with the Porsche. But if Julien Juste could get through, I reckon he might be able to have a sniff at gaining 3rd place away from the blue and white Monza winning 911 just up the road. Through turns 6 and 7, gently back on the power for Ludovic Badet. Julien Juste tucked up behind him then in car number 10. And now onto one of the faster parts of the circuit, speed building all the time on this long back straight down towards the tight turn 9. Turn in, tightens as you go through. Still Badet keeping Juste at bay. The two of them nose to tail, but all of this playing nicely into the hands of Auto Orlando Sport ahead, because their Porsche is looking a bit more secure in 3rd place. Julien Juste right on the tail of his teammate there, Ludovic Badet. There he is, hanging on to 4th, getting sideways, corrects it, but he got the power down just a tad too early there. Back kicked out on him. Julien Juste not able to take advantage of any of that, but he's right there on the back of Ludovic Badet, coming now through turn 15, and I think possibly this time Juste may have a better run coming out of the corner. Vastly experienced driver is Julien Juste. He's raced in the FIA Formula 2 Championship, he's raced in Super League, he's driven to be the runner-up, in fact, in the Formula Renault 3.5 category a few years back, but he can't quite get ahead of Ludovic Badet there, coming past the pits up towards turn 1. Busy start to the race for many of the teams, and certainly here you've got the two teammates arguing over position for 4th place. The Sofrev Autosport Promotion cars, nose to tail. The new 458s, which the team has also been running within the French GT Championship this year, and therefore gaining a bit more data, getting a bit more mileage, starting to work on the cars, develop them a little bit further. Other teams like Circuito Vittoria have been doing that because they also run the car that they run in this race in the British GT Championship, and it's been a winner there, whereas the Vita 4-1 team only doing this championship until they're happy with the reliability of the car. Change for the lead of GT4, look, because the Nissan is dropping back, and that's the leader looking for a way past the traffic. It's a Lotus 1-2 now. The Nissan falling to third place. Alex Buncombe has lost out there, and it's Stefano Ortelli leading, but you can see now as they wriggle their way through the back markers, Frank Kettler is much, much closer to him. Down towards turn 12, Ortelli runs up on the inside to Eduardo Piscopo leading GT4. Second there, Freddie Varf and the two race leaders working their way through on the inside. Now, last time around, Kettler did a personal best lap. He's being a bit hamstrung on this lap because he got the traffic to work her way through. He's got another back marker. Dives past Freddie Varf, the former World Touring Car Seat racer. Picks him off into turn 15. The gap will have widened just a little bit between the top two, a legacy of the back markers. So Stefano Ortelli leads the way then as he comes now up towards the end of lap number 12. Goes through now. Still behind him is Kettler. The gap just hovering over a second this time. Flash of the lights from Kettler to the Lotus of Piscopo to say, I'm behind you. Get out of my way, please. But I would imagine that the Italian driver Eduardo Piscopo will be fully aware of that. Won't get in the way. As yet, though, the Ferrari has not found a way through. Let's see. Kettler's done it now, going through turn 4. So Ortelli potentially a little bit further up the road now. Heading into turn 6, Stefano Ortelli leading for Audi. The French driver clear of the very impressive young German Frank Kettler, who came out of the German GT Championship, was a winner at Spa last year in the GT1 World Championship. And doing the opening stint as he did at Monza. Another flash of the lights from Ortelli to tell Georges Caban ahead of him in the white Lamborghini, I'm on my way, get ready and get out of my way, please. Again, the Sofrev Ferrari is trying to squabble. But it is still Bade keeping Jus at bay, and Gianluca Roda there, moving himself ahead of Freddie Varf. We've just had into the pit lane, incidentally, number 24, Mark Hayek, up from the rear of the grid with its alternator problem. And this is Marcus Paltela, the man who runs in 6th place overall at the moment with the Ford GT. Now, his lap times are going up. Last time around, he was 2 seconds slower than the class opposition. It's either a problem or he's looking after the car for fuel, but I think it's a big problem because he's losing places now. He's just let the Aston go by and he didn't fight for that, so he's tumbling down the order. He was 6th at the start of the lap, he's 12th now. So the Ford is heading for the pit lane, and that's going to be another car, I fear, which will lose a lot of time. The Reiter Engineering engineers looking into the rear of the car, trying to get to the bottom of this alternator problem, but it's not looking good, is it, for Mark Hayek and Peter Koch after all the hard work the team put in to just get the car into the race after the engine let go so spectacularly in qualifying this morning. There's Julien Jus, still 5th, and up into the top 6 this time will come the second of the Audis, Andrea Piccini, number 33, who, a little bit like we saw at Monza, is having a fairly subdued start, but then within his stint the car suddenly got faster at Monza, and it's happening here as well. Marcus Paltela for the pit lane there. Mark VDS Racing, the Belgian team that runs the Ford GT, not only in this but also in the FIA GT1 World Championship, thankfully for them, are at the pit-in end of the pit lane, which means the car doesn't have far to go before it reaches them. It stops. They'll go to work on the car. They'll refuel it now because you may as well do some fueling while the car is in to save time on a later pit stop. But number 40, I'm afraid to say, has a problem. So down the pit road has come Paltela. And because the refueling is finished, he's able to do up his belts once again. So adhering to the regulations, all is good. He's going to stay behind the wheel of the car then, assuming it's able to go back out again. Tightens up the shoulder straps. He may have been on the radio reporting back to give them a clue as to what the problem was. And the attention coming on that left rear corner. Suspension problem. Not a punctured tyre, is it? But it's something in that left rear corner that is the problem. They're peering in, but looks like it might be a bit lengthy, this, for the team. And it's not just a new tyre, I don't think. Wheel goes back on. But while all this is happening, the car has now gone a lap down. There's the leader. Stefano Ortelli has gone over the timing line, so the number 44, which had a puncture at Monza and therefore lost a chance of winning, it finished 3rd in the end, is now a lap down. Frank Kettler just ducks up the inside to lap the Porsche of Stefano Bianconi. Race leaders drop downhill, heading now into the left-hander at turn 4. And you can see the way they've gapped number 9 Porsche. Kekler, having been stuck behind Gianluca Roda for so long, now well clear. And Roda in turn is falling further and further away. His lap times are about half a second a lap slower than the leaders. And I'm afraid to say, number 40 is heading for its garage. Never a good sign. Baz Linders standing there looking very despondent about life because the car was showing good pace yesterday. It was very quick in the pre-qualifying session. But come the race, it's in the garage. Maxime Martin there to the left with his overalls down. Maybe denied the chance to get behind the wheel. And hopefully we'll be able to hear from the team very shortly with Haley in the pit lane to get to the bottom of exactly what the problem is. No dramas so far for the Belgian Audi club because Stefan Ortelli leads Frank Kekler. The gap is coming down, that's for sure. But it could be that Stefan Ortelli is just being a little bit more cautious on the fuel here. First time we've had many of these drivers competing at the Navarra circuit. 1 or 2 have been here testing, but we've had relatively little racing here in the past. Well, Baz Linders has joined Haley in the pit lane. He can explain, hopefully, what the problem is.
Baz, can you update us what the problem is with the Ford GT?
Apparently there's a problem with the suspension, the upright, something broke on the upright on the left rear. So Marcus did a very good start. We were in 6th position, so we knew we couldn't win, but we hoped for a good position, but unfortunately I think the race is over.
Thank you.
So very disappointing result for the Marc VDS Racing Team Ford GT. Out of the race before they've even got to the end of the first 15 laps. Very disappointing indeed for a car that was running solidly, if not that rapidly compared to others, within the top 6. But just being there at the finish is part of the battle, and sad to say the car won't be. Number 3 is back in the race after its steering issue after the contact earlier on. And number 3, you remember, was brought in by Jan Clare. Well, he is now in 30th place and many, many laps behind. So it's now really a big test session, I think, for Hexus AMR. Best battle at the moment within the leading group is for 4th place still, and it's number 20 Ludovic Badet there. Ahead of number 10 is teammate Julien Jus, and the two of them now run down the straight towards turn number 9. The gap widens just a little bit coming out of the corner. I think, to be fair to Julien Jus, he's good on the brakes, but then the car, because he brakes so late, just washes out going through the corner. This is the lead battle as well. We're getting closer all the time as Frank Kekler. It was down to just 8/10 of a second when they came across the line onto the start of this lap. Ortelli in the Audi then keeping Kekler at bay. Fascinating duel this. You've got the young gun German still learning about GT racing, taking on a real master of the art in Stefan Ortelli, who, like many, began in single-seater racing, but by the mid-1990s had switched to GT racing. He was part of the Porsche 1998 Le Mans winning squad. He drove for Bentley, of course, in their prototype era. Drove for Audi in the early days of prototypes as well. Won in a then NGT spec Porsche, the 2003 Spa 24 Hours. And Stefan Ortelli, very reliable, very experienced, very quick driver, and doing the job exactly as asked of him by the WRT team at the moment in the lead of the race by 6/10 of a second. Frank Kekler is closing, but it's not going to be easy to get past Ortelli, that's for sure. Still 3rd is the Porsche of Gianluca Roda. 4th and 5th, the Sofred Ferraris. Badet ahead of Jus, and into the top 6 now comes number 33, and that is a big accident, I'm afraid, for Philippe Scherer. Out of the Gentleman Trophy for the GT3 cars, the French-American driver, Philippe Scherer, off the road, and he's done a lot of damage to that car. And that, I think, is coming into the last corner, isn't it? That's turn 15, yes it is. And with the car in an awkward place, we may be heading for an intervention here. We'll see what the race director decides to do, but Philippe Scherer, I'm afraid, is going no further. You can see the damage on the front of the car. Did he get there on his own? Was it given a tap? Either way, that car is out of the race. Philippe Scherer is okay, that's the good news. And the gap was coming down anyway between the 2 race leaders. If we get a safety car, it will become nothing at all. Kekler then, right on the back of the Audi. 2 of them running together on the run to 12. Yellow flags being waved there in anticipation of the incident zone really around the corner. And ahead of them, coming back into the pit lane, Mark Hayek in the troubled Lamborghini. So the race leaders come into the incident zone itself. They've got the Ginetta ahead to lap in a moment, Piero Limonta's car, which will keep out of the way, no doubt. And the gap between the top 2 was 0.6 of a second last time. It's nothing at all now. Here comes Kekler up on the inside. The black and turquoise Ferrari tries to make its move and easily strolls on by into the lead of the race. Frank Kekler then takes over the lead at the end of lap 17. He's worked his way up from 3rd place in the early laps. Goes ahead of Ortelli and straight away pulls clear because Ortelli gets stuck behind the Ginetta going through turn 1 and 2 and 3. Ortelli losing chunks of time as Piero Limonta is still in his way. Now Ortelli makes his move to the inside and the Ginetta won't let him by. Has Ortelli got a problem? That car suddenly just doesn't seem to have the pace to even get past a back marker, and Ortelli making heavy weather of it, goes through now. But that was, what, 5 corners he got stuck behind the Ginetta for. There, into the pit lane, is number 33. That's quite an early stop. Andrea Piccini then, who comes in after 16 laps. Driver change takes place, but certainly not a tank of fuel, I wouldn't have thought. Too early for most teams' comfort. Fuel and tyres, unless there was a tyre pickup problem, and they've elected to bring the car in early, put new tyres on and refuel it while they're there. So it might now be a car, just to keep an eye to that, running out of sequence after an early stop. But now, if that's when people are going to come in, let's see what the others can do. We've only had really half an hour of the race, 17 laps. Teams looking to try and do 34, 35 within an hour, which is looking as though it is going to be a viable number at the moment. You can see the Lotuses in GT4 there being negotiated by the number 4 Aston Martin, still pushing on Henri Moser, who is currently in 10th place. Now the Ford GT, incidentally, just making its way back into the race now. And car 33 has rejoined as well, down in 17th spot. Has stayed on the lead lap, but just. Gap between the leaders, 5.4 seconds at the end of one lap with the Ferrari in the lead, much of which, of course, was accrued by the Audi being stuck behind the Ginetta, but that's a monster gap. And Stefano Ortelli, a very slow lap in the 145s, stuck behind the Ginetta, but still a bit curious as to why he couldn't get past sooner. It did seem as though he was struggling for pace just to duck up the inside and nip by. Car 22 confirmed as a retirement. It's been pushed away behind the barrier, the damaged Ferrari that we saw. And what's going on here for 4th place? Well, they've caught up to Gianluca Roda, who is in traffic once again. But now the number 9 Porsche, there it is, has got the 2 Ferraris right back on its tail, just like Roda had in the early laps of the race. But now, number 40, the Ford there, is getting in the way a little bit. Marcus Paltela trying to claim his line, but the Ferraris wanted it as well. They go past him now. Now this battle going on for 4th and 5th places. Still Julien Jousse looking for a way by to move himself up into 4th place, but it's not happening for him at the moment. And to be fair to Ludovic Badet, he's done a very good job here of defending. What he can't do anymore is really attack that Porsche, even though they've caught back up. I think that was more to do with traffic, more than their own pace, coming downhill now towards turn 14. And this is going to be the end of lap number 19 for the race leaders. Over the timing line then, 19 laps in the book, and the gap continues to go out between the top 2. There you can see car number 10 in 5th spot, Julien Jousse. Now what does he do to get past his teammate? Because for as long as he's stuck there, he's losing time relative to the leaders. Runs a little bit more raggedly through turn 2 that time, just bounces towards the curb. Heading now through the downhill fast left-hander of turn 4. Two of them still nose to tail, and Julien Jousse now with a bit more urgency about his driving, trying to force Badet into an error. It nearly came there, but he had the outside line climbing uphill, which wasn't the ideal place. Now what can he do heading into turn 8? Again, Ludovic Badet looking a bit more ragged, goes wide, but Julien Jousse hasn't quite got the grunt coming out of the corner, so he can't find a way through. Looks to the inside line, heading down towards turn 9, back markers up the road as well, and it is still just the Ferrari number 20 that hangs on to the pace, but Ludovic Badet feeling the pressure now. And Julien Jousse, having been seemingly content early on to just sit there, now looking very committed indeed as the cars accelerate their way down towards turn number 12. Dart past the GT4 Aston, riding the curb is Julien Jousse, and you can see now he is totally determined not to lose a 1/10 of a second to his teammate. He's staying right on his tail as they go out of turn 13, having caught up a couple of laps back to Roda. They are together again for 4th place, and the 3rd place car pulling clear. Down to turn 15 then, the two of them tied together for 4th spot. Kettler leading Ortelli still as they come across the line. Pulling to the inside line there, right up against the pit wall, is Julien Jousse. I just wonder how much of the irritation in that car now is being shared with the team. You get the feeling that Jousse wants to be ahead of Bardet, and he's a bit frustrated that he can't go faster because he's still stuck there behind the theoretically slower car. Number 10 has a better overall chance because you've got 3 pro drivers in it, whereas Ludovic Bardet has 2 amateur drivers with him as his teammates, and therefore over the course of 3 hours that car will drop down the order. For now though, it's up to Julien Jousse to force the issue and get past. They have to dodge past traffic there, which they both do successfully on the inside, heading through turn 6. But Julien Jousse, certainly the way that he's now aiming the car at any opportunity to try and distract Bardet, who makes a mistake and gets sideways. Is this Jousse's chance? Yes, it is. Finally, he levels with him. The 2 Ferraris absolutely level as they come down towards turn 9, and at long last, through on the inside line goes Julien Jousse. That gives him finally 4th place. He's had to work very, very hard for that, and to be fair to Ludovic Bardet, it was a good defence. Only a tiny error really has tripped him up there, and the cars now work their way out of turn 12, but in a new order. So Julien Jousse goes up into 4th spot. Race lead is currently on lap number 21, and as they turn now into turn number 13, order is Ferrari, Audi, Porsche, Ferrari, because behind these 2 teammates you've got the second Vita 4-1 car in the hands of Nick Hommerson. Up over the timing line come the race leaders now then, and the gap widens just a touch. That time between them is another 7/10 quicker is Kettler than Ortelli. Now Jousse, is he going to be able to pull away from Ludovic Bardet? He does the better lap, of course, now that he's been released, but Bardet lost time anyway with his little indiscretion. And there, look, pretending to be 6th, which is where it was earlier on, is the Ford GT. But in a real 6th place now is Nick Hommerson. Now, let's head down to the pit lane, because Andrea Piccini is there, and he of course was an early stopper. Well, let's find out why. He's with Haley.
Andrea, you seem to step out of the Audi in a quite disappointing manner. Can you explain what's happened before you came in for your pit stop?
I mean, I saw the accident in the last corner. A Ferrari 430 crashed into the barriers and went back on the circuit. So I spoke to the team on the radio and I said, might be a safety car issue. We know if there was a safety car after 25 minutes we were supposed to come in. And then I came to corner 7 and 8, where you have the marshal post right in front of you, and there was safety car board, yellow flags and yellow flashing lights. So I called the team and I said safety car in the circuit, and they called me in. There's no safety car. So that's, I don't know, it's a shame because it's not good for us, but it's not good for the championship as well when it works this way. And I know Stefan as well lost the position because he backed off and some cars overtook him. So it's still possible to do a good race because I don't think we will need a splash and dash to the end, but for sure it will be more difficult with the tires. And on top of that, after the Ferrari stopping me in the beginning, we were catching very much, so it would have been nice to continue doing a nice race. But cross the fingers, we can still do a good race.
Thank you.
Andrea Piccini right about that flashing yellow light, and the yellow flag showed quite a few corners early, so tricking him into thinking there was a safety car, but there was never a safety car message on the timing screen, which the teams also get, of course, and nor were there any SC boards around the circuit, but the yellow flag's been shown a few corners early, and that's what rather fooled 1 or 2 of the drivers. Well, there is 33. That's the car that Andrea Piccini started. It's now being driven by Marcel Fassler. Frank Kettler leading the way, whereas for 6th place here, Nick Hommerson is under massive pressure from the BMW Z4. The young Dutch driver, Jeroen de Boer, right up behind him as they go towards turns 2 and 3. And Nick Hommerson is doing a good defensive job, but Jeroen de Boer trying one side and then the other, looking for a way past Nick Hommerson, who is another of the quick gentleman racers in this championship. Only began in the year 2000 in the very quirky Donkervoort Cup, racing the Ferrari Challenge. He's driven in GT3 spec Lamborghinis. He drove in the Le Mans Series last year in a GT2 Porsche. He goes one side of the back marker, the BMW tried to go the other, almost lost time, but Jeroen de Boer is able to come out of the corner almost level with the Ferrari. The 2 of them nose to tail. This is turn 8. Dab of the brakes there for Nick Hommerson as he turns his way through. This is the fight for 6th and 7th overall, and it's also a genuine battle for position in class, and that's a Lotus with a problem heading into the pit lane. Very smoky left rear corner, and I think that might be number 61, which means it is Freddie Bath's car comes in. So the pole-sitting GT4 Lotus is into the pit lane, and it's not a scheduled stop. So down the pit road it comes. Now that is the race leader, Frank Kekler, who has come in. And that's pretty early, I would have thought, for that car, because it has done 23 laps before pitting. And Michael Bartel was saying to me they can do an hour without any problem on fuel, but they are certainly early on that. Refueling is done. Only 4 mechanics at one time can work on the car, so you've got to get the fuel done. They're 2-part pit stops, effectively. Driver change and fuel is part 1, tyres is part 2. So Stefano Ortelli then back into the lead of the race, and behind him is 33, Marcel Fassler, who has now therefore gone a lap down. The number 1 Ferrari, there'll be quite a few fingers crossed in that camp, because it was a starter motor that prevented the car from doing much in the Monza race after the first stints, but it drops down and it fires up and it leaves the pit lane now. So all is good. And the number 1 Ferrari will stay on the lead lap. Back into the race it goes. So the race order now, Stefano Ortelli leads from, in second place, number 9, Gianluca Roda. In third is Julien Juste, Ludovic Badet. Fourth, Nick Homerson. Fifth, sixth, Jeroen de Boer in the BMW that we were watching that great battle between a little while ago. And number 1, 14th, when it went over the timing line at pit out. And that, I'm afraid, is Jack Gerber's Ferrari out of the race, and that is also down at the last corner. That's where we lost 22, and that, I would suggest, is an even bigger accident. Jack Gerber, the South African. Matt Griffin is not going to be able to show what he's capable of, because there's not much at the front of the 458 left. I'm afraid the South African driver has had a big moment coming into the last corner. He's rattled off the barriers, done a lot of damage to the front. This time I think you might expect a safety car, because there's not only a car in a nasty place, but there's a lot more debris on the road, and the race director doesn't want people driving over that and having punctured tyres. So Stefano Ortelli leads the way. The gap that he has got over Gianluca Roda is a pretty substantial one now, but I'm afraid to say that the number 50 AF Corsa Ferrari is going nowhere. Surely that's got to be a safety car, because there's barely a racing line anymore. Drivers having to pick their way past the wreckage, and indeed the safety car is being deployed. The SC legend has come up on the screen. There it is as well for you at home, and the boards will go out around the circuit. As yet there isn't one on the start line, but there the marshals around the circuit do have the SC boards and the yellow flags, and so it's number 50 Jack Gerber, the South African, who has gone off the road. And the safety car will pick up the leader. Well, this in a way is bad news for 33, because it is stuck a lap down on the leading car. So ideally that wants to be ahead of its teammate, be released, and therefore try and catch back up to the crocodile if possible. A number of teams may take the opportunity to come in, just throw some fuel into the car, because they'll lose less time relative to what they would lose under full race conditions. Right, there's the safety car making its way out onto the circuit. And it will pick up, hopefully, the race leader at the end of lap 25. But the leader is in. So, not surprisingly, perhaps, Stefano Ortelli comes in after 24 laps for him. Crosses the timing line on pit out. So, he's on his 24th. Sorry, he's done 24. This is his 25th lap. He will have done 25 when he leaves the pit lane and goes over the timing beam. Out of the car gets Stefano Ortelli then. And that will put Gianluca Roda into the lead of the race now in the number 9 Ferrari. And all of this, when the race leader pits and he just deployed the safety car, is a nightmare for the race director. Many of them coming in now as well. In comes car number 2. Also, right on the tail is 43, Jeroen de Boer, in with the BMW Z4 Coupe. You've also got number 40 having made a stop, Marcus Paltela having already been in once, but that car coming back into the pit lane. So the leading Audi, fuel and tyres, and Vita 4-1 not ready, and I think also number 2 has stopped short of its pit box, so the mechanics have to sprint down and give the car a shove. In also in the background has come the white Lamborghini. Eugenio Amos will run through what the order is once the safety car has picked up the field and we've had the round of pit stops completed, and also catch up on the driver changes that have been taking place. 38 in the background also having a driver change. Giacomo Petronelli having started. Matteo Bobbi did the middle stint at Monza. So the safety car on track, and it's all activity. Look down in the pit lane now. Number 1 was taken over by Nico Verdonk, So that car back into the race, and of course doesn't really lose too much time now because all the gaps come down once again under the safety car like this. There's oil on the road at turn 15 as well, which is where the 458 of Jack Gerber went off. So that's something else for the marshals to have to deal with, not only sweeping the debris off the road, but also treat the liquid that's been spilled. So, although at Monza we had a few cars, and I think the number 50 Ferrari, to be fair to it, was one of them in the gravel. We never really had much in the way of damage, not like we've had here. And certainly in the race, of course, as well, with barely 45 minutes done. BMW back into the race there, Jeroen de Boer, and it's a long stop look for the Ferrari in the background. It's still in the pit lane, so we've had a change of place on the pit stops here because the number 2 car of Vita 4-1, the Nick Hommerson, Louis Machiels and Paul van Splunteren car, has lost time and isn't going anywhere, and that just makes you wonder whether it's a starter motor issue. And a red flag is being shown at the end of the pit lane, and the lights are on red on the start line there, and the safety car coming up towards the line. It continues to circulate, but the red flag at the end of the pit lane is to prevent anybody from joining ahead of the queue, so those drivers will be released, but at the back of the pack. And of course the safety car tried to pick up the leader then pitted, so the order is very jumbled indeed behind. In fact, the cars that are behind the safety car now are 10 and 20. That means Julien Jousse ahead of Ludovic Badet, and Gianluca Roda has pitted. That's the reason that they're now behind, because Gianluca Roda, you can just in the background see down in the pit lane. So the number 9 Porsche come in this time. So that's done 25 laps. There it is, and just ahead, swinging in, is the number 7 Lamborghini, Mika Vähämäki. Right, mass exodus of the pit lane now, look. So Ortelli led behind the safety car briefly, but pitted. Then Gianluca Roda did. That was brought in by the team. So now it's a 1-2 for the Sofrev Autosport Promotion team. And in third place is number 45, which is Andrea Barlesi in the Gulf Racing Lamborghini. So 14 more minutes we're at the end of the first hour. There's Jack Gerber, perhaps a little sore and shaken, but he's okay. But I'm afraid to say his AF Corsa Ferrari is definitely not okay. The team run by Amato Ferrari, one-time British touring car racer. There down the pit lane, rejoining is the number 9 Porsche. And I would imagine they're going to put Raffaele Giammaria into it for the middle stint. We'll check in a second as the car goes back out onto the road. It is indeed the very rapid Italian single-seater driver at the wheel. All queued up then behind the safety car, and the indication of course is when the lights go off on top of the safety car, that will be the signal that it will come into the pit lane. Ricardo Bravo has taken over in the number 6 Lamborghini. There you can see the great variety that you have in the Blancpain Endurance Series. Cars working their way through turns 12 and 13 at the moment. And we have the Ferrari 458s then, 1 and 2 of the Sofrev team. Jousse ahead of Badet, third, the Lamborghini of Andrea Barlesi in fourth now. Number 32 with Bert Langevin at the wheel of it, and 5th and 6th, Eric Querol and then Nico Verdonk. Marcel Fassler is 7th for Audi, 8th is Raffaele Giammaria Porsche, 9th is Jeroen de Boer, still at the wheel of the BMW Z4, and then to round out the top 10 is number 4 Henri Moses Aston Martin. Lamborghini run 11th and 12th. Tielemans number 7 and Amos number 25 before their pit stops. And then in 13th spot is the Scuderia Vittoria Ferrari ahead of Ricardo Bravo's Lamborghini, and 15th was number 2 Nick Hommerson, but he's just come back into the pit lane, so he's done one lap, or that car has done one lap. It's not Nick Hommerson at the wheel anymore, is it? It's Louis Machiels who's come back in, so there's a problem clearly for number 2. 31 Georges Caban is in as well, and that means that elevated is going to be number 63 the Nissan. Lower down the order, Ginetta and Lotus 22nd and 23rd, but then after them you've got, I'm afraid, a number of cars that are either the walking wounded or no longer in the race after their earlier problems with barriers and gravel, all ensnaring different cars. There's 31 Georges Caban into the pit lane, number 31. And there is a benefit, I suppose, if it's a long safety car period, to keep coming in and splashing some more fuel in. As long as you can stay on the lead lap, then you're always going to have a reasonable amount of fuel in that car. Georges Cabin gets out this time, and getting into that car, therefore, is his new for this weekend co-driver of Fabien Michal. As for the number 2 Ferrari, just ahead of it in the pit lane, the car, I think he's ready to go once again, but it's been another lengthy stop, this. And there, the marshals hard at work. They've got the car out of the way, which is the good news, but all of that liquid and oil that was spilt also needs to be treated before the circuit's clear for racing once again. Number 2 then, back down the pit lane, Louis Machiel's at the wheel. So a second pit stop, the car at least still in the race, and it has gone a lap down. That's the downside to the fact that it's made that second pit stop now. Team is getting ready for the next round of pit stops. It's going to have to be the Autosport Promotion team, I think, isn't it, that's ready next, because their leading cars don't want to be out for much longer if we go green, because they're going to have to make a pit stop under racing conditions. Get it out of the way now while the safety car is on track. It's going to be another lap at least, I would have thought. And are they going to bring them in together? No, Julien Juste will come in first. Ludovic Badet will have to do another lap, so he hopes there are another couple of safety car laps at the very least here. Down the pit road then comes car 10. So Julien Juste, having worked his way ahead of his teammate, briefly led the race, and he makes his way down the pit road now. The Ginetta in the background has also come in for its first stop, Piero Linonta, and the number 10 team goes to work. Jerome Policon's squad working through the tyres in a moment. First of all, you can do the driver change and the fuel. So this car, when it rejoins, is going to be at the back of the queue, more traffic to work through, but at least when the race restarts, they're not going to have to worry too much about gaps in that traffic. Yes, they will have lost track position, but at least the field is still going to be tightly grouped, whereas they'll lose less time relative to doing this pit stop under a green flag condition. So ideally it would have been done at the start of the pit window, but they've elected to do it later. The one that might lose out more is the sister car that has not yet pitted. There you can see in the pit lane the Nissan, Alex Buncombe has been in, and also there the number 8 Aston Martin, Ludovic Sunier. That was the car that was pulled out of the gravel. But I'm a bit more concerned about number 20 from Sofret, because that car leading the way now, but has yet to make a stop, and we're almost getting towards the end of this safety car period, aren't we? The worst thing that can happen for that is it pits as we go green. New tyres being put on to the number 10 Ferrari. But they need to get that back out onto the circuit. They're long stops, and at the moment a safety car lap is 2 3/4 minutes, give or take. So important that this car is able to get out and catch back up to the Crocodile. So Ludovic Badet leading the way now in the number 20 Ferrari. Behind, also having not made a pit stop under the safety car, is 45 Andrea Barlesi. And this really gives the advantage back to Bert Longin's Audi, number 32, because that car is the best of those that have made a pit stop. It's going to be in third place, and the other two are going to have to serve a stop pretty soon, because we're getting towards the end of the hour, and that really is when they want to try and come in for the first tank full of fuel, if they are able to at least run to 60 minutes on a tank of fuel. The safety car is in at the end of this lap, so there, the leading car, I'm afraid, has been dealt a pretty bad hand by the team. They called in the sister car, the quicker car, a bit later than they should have, I reckon, and Ludovic Badet now is going to go back into a green flag situation, knowing that he's got to make another stop, and any gap that had been built up over the opposition has disappeared. So at least now he's got a clear road ahead of him. He's going to have to go like stink here and try and build up some sort of an advantage if he can, but it is not going to be easy. When he comes over the line, the Nissan, which is still in the pit lane, will go a lap down. So the safety car is in. You can see Bert Longin there in the Audi getting a bit keen on the inside, trying to get past one of the slower Porsches. Right, we go racing once again then. First safety car period complete, and Ludovic Badet, number 20, leads the way. There second is the Lamborghini 45 of Andrea Barlesi. Third is Bert Longin, and then in fourth spot, number 42, the Sport Garage Ferrari of the experienced Eric Kirol. Fifth is number 1, Nico Verdonk. You're riding now on board number 40. Bas Linders at the wheel of a Ford GT, but it's many laps down, so it's a great vantage point to be riding with him, but I'm afraid he's not going to challenge for position anymore. There, 33, Marcel Fassler. Well, that car's back in the hunt as well, in a sense now. He's on the lead lap once again, and in 6th place overall, so it was a rather crestfallen Andrea Piccini, who was in similar mood last week at the Sachsenring, having crashed in qualifying, but then he got a win the following day. can he get a good result out of this, despite the drama of thinking there was a safety car? The one that's also lost out by pitting a bit later is the number 9 Porsche that did lead, but is now down in 7th place, so has lost a fair chunk of track position. Bas Leijnders looking for a way here up on the inside of the 430 Ferrari alongside. Great noise from the Ford GT, riding down towards now turn 9. Bas Leijnders turning his way through that tight right-hander. So Ludovic Badet leading from Andrea Barlesi. But there you can see number 1, which is Nico Verdonk, going after 32 Bert Langin. In real terms, these are the top 2, because they were the 2 disputing the lead before the pit stops. But you notice we've had that switch around now, because the Audi is back ahead of the Ferrari, which was the reverse of the situation before they pitted. But number 1 pitted sooner than the Audi, so therefore gave up its lead. Early on it was Ortelli that led, and Frank Kekler that caught him. Lead traded. And now you've got the Audi back in front after the pit stops and the safety car period. Ludovic Badet staying out for as long as he can. Well, the other element to this is, of course, he is the quicker of the 3 drivers, so he's got to try and do the maximum driving available. Over the line he goes, trying to pull clear, and as he does so, he's a second and a bit, nearly a second and a half quicker than Barlesi behind him. Bert Langin third, the best of the pit stoppers now. And Nico Verdonk, the young Belgian driver, switching to GT cars this year, right on his tail then. And there's a big lock up behind, but this for 3rd place on track, and for the honour of being the best of the pit stoppers so far is about to go the way of Vita 4-1, I reckon, because Nico Verdonk is looking for a way through as they plunge downhill. He thinks about the inside line, but Bert Langin, vastly experienced, the Belgian driver, is able to fend him off as they turn their way through 4 and 5 now. Langin wide over the curb, battle of the Belgians here. Langin keeping his fellow countryman at bay. Nico Verdonk, another of the rising Belgian stars in sports car racing, right on the back of the Audi as they drop down towards turn number 9 now. Ludovic Badet leading the pack at the moment, but Gulf Lamborghini second, and this for 3rd. To the inside line there, tried to go, but it didn't work out for him, Nico Verdonk. And the sister car is busy defending places lower down the order as well. In a sense, ignore the top 2 because they're running out of sequence, having not made a pit stop. And this is a great battle. It's the 3rd on track, but really it's for the honour of the race lead because they are already a pit stop in hand. You have to make a regulation 2, but it was a fairly short opening stint from number 1. It was only 23 laps, wasn't it, before Frank Kekler brought the car in for fuel and tyres. It was before the safety car came out. Maybe it was a bit of a gamble to do it, thinking that the safety car was imminent for that crashed Ferrari. But either way, we've got the battle well and truly joined once again. Bert Langin wide, coming out of turn 15, and there, tucked up behind it, Nico Verdonk. Over the timing line they come now. Ludovic Badet, the race leader, lapping in the 140s. Bert Langin lapping in the 41s. So these two at the moment are just lapping a bit slower than the race leader, but that's mainly because they're busy battling. Heading now up towards turn 3. And Nico Verdonk racing here for the first time, looking for a way past Bert Langin, who goes wide. He's going to head for the curb. Can the Ferrari duck up alongside? Not coming out of turn 3, it can't. Downhill they go, nose to tail. Verdonk has a look to the inside at turn 4. Really, the best opportunity is going to be either to force Langin into a mistake coming through this next sequence at 6 and 7, or at the end of the next long straight down towards turn 9. And again, Bert Langin is a little bit wide though there. Number 1, Nico Verdonk looks to line him up on the inside, heading into turn 8. There's a gap on the inside briefly, but Langin moves across and covers the line. Uses all of the curb on the outside of the road, then running out of the corner down towards turn 9. Flash of the lights here from Nico Verdonk, saying, come on, Bert, you're holding me up now. Get out of the way. But Langin doesn't have to get out of the way. This is a genuine fight for place. Through turn 9, nose to tail. The Audi just ahead of the Ferrari, the new 458. Still in its infancy in terms of development, whereas the Audi is in now its 2nd full season of racing. And there's the Nissan, which was leading early on the GT4 contest. It's made its first pit stop and now has Jordan Tresson at the wheel. Cars making their way down towards us, with Leo Mansell incidentally having taken over the number 70 at Lotus, and 61, which had that early pit stop, Freddie Bath, has given away now to Lawrence Frey. That's the 3rd car you can see running in the GT4 battle here, because ahead is the GT3 spec Cup class Porsche. Over the line comes Langin and Verdonk once again, these two nose to tail, heading up now through turn 1. Turn right again, slightly tighter corner, and then even tighter again at turn 3. Great opening sequence to the lap this, and once more Verdonk looking to try to get the run up alongside the Audi, but to no avail. expect this battle to run all season in a sense, and particularly at the Spa 24 Hours, where a Belgian team desperately wants to win the Blue Ribbon event. But Vita 4-1 has made no bones about the fact that it wants to win that race above all others this year. So the fight here in the early stages of round 2 of the Blancpain Endurance Series, it's going to carry on for definite to Belgium for round 3 of the Spa 24 Hours, with this mega entry being received. Langevin runs a little bit wide again coming out of turn 8. There's Andrea Barlesi, another of the Belgian drivers in the entry. The young Belgian in second spot. As to the inside line goes Nico Verdonk. He breaks as late as he dares. Can he get up alongside Langevin? No, he can't. Again, the Audi just hangs onto the place. Fantastic battle, this. There's still nose to tail, and Bert Langevin has not put a wheel wrong, really. He's gone wide perhaps just once, ever so slightly, but he's soaking up the pressure, sponge-like, being applied by Nico Verdonk, who rides the curbs there, coming out of turn 12. Verdonk looks to the inside, but he still can't unsettle Bert Langevin. Down through turn 14 they come, and now make the run towards the end of the lap. Not as slippery a corner as it was early on in the race. Now the oil has been soaked up, and I'm afraid this is a repeat of what we saw at Monza. Ginetta on fire. Back for a moment to what's going on for third place. Langevin and Verdonk side by side now, and Nico Verdonk is going to get the place, I think, on the inside heading into turn 1. He's got the shorter line for the corner, and he's done it. He's gone through. Now that Ginetta, smoking and with flames coming out of the back as well, is possibly dropping oil on the circuit, and that means that life for the drivers is going to get tricky once again. We just caught a glimpse of the Ginetta with Diego Alessi at the wheel. Well ablaze, there it is, just like happened at Monza. Well, the car was able to get to the pit lane and the blaze was extinguished. Diego Alessi is not doing it any good here, I'm afraid. Experienced driver is Diego Alessi. He's got the message now with all that black smoke filling his mirrors. He's going to bring the car into the pit lane. Great, because there's lots of fuel in the pit road. What he needs is a marshal with an extinguisher. And somewhere all of that black smoke is a Ginetta, and he's pulled it off the road, but I think now he's probably done too much damage to that car. And are we going to go safety car again? Because it's nowhere near a marshal as far as I can see. And Diego Alessi walks away from it, but he's done the best part of a lap with that car ablaze. And by the time anybody gets to it, there'll be precious little of the back of that Ginetta around. The black smoke drifting across the circuit, and the fire truck, frustratingly, is on the other side of the road. But as I say, by the time anybody gets there, there'll be nothing left of that car. 1 or 2 heading for the pit lane, including Andrea Barlesi there out of second place. Right, another fire truck has arrived, stops ahead of cars coming into the pit lane. They've got to dodge around it, so there's a bit of chaos coming into the pit lane there. So that blaze needing to be extinguished, but much as an experienced racer Diego Alessi is, I fear that the finger can be pointed at him for not parking that car sooner. So we go safety car again. Not surprising, because you can't race past that with all the smoke and the extinguishers, and of course the marshals being in a very vulnerable position as well. Well, the blaze, I was going to say is out. No, it's not. It started up again, hasn't it? 45 pits, so they call that right. Dived in just before the safety car boards came up. Andrea Barlesi gets out of the car, and Jean-Pierre Valentini and Fabien Giraud, the 2 co-drivers. Well, there you can see Ludovic Badet leading. Behind him in the queue is Lotus number 70, Leo Mansell. And then the next car is Nico Verdonk. So Ludovic Badet, yet again, having tried to build a lead, has it reduced by a safety car. And once more, numbers 1 and 32, Nico Verdonk and Bert Langevin, looking as though they are in the prime place now for a race win. Can 45 go back out without losing a lap? And still the blaze on this Ginetta has taken hold. Of course, Diego Alessi was just into his stint, so in other words, there's a full tank of fuel in that car. It's not like it was at the end of its stint and there was very little left in the tank. It was almost a full tank of fuel again. He'd probably only done a lap or 2 at most, and so they've got to try and put out an hour's worth of fuel. An entire tank full is still burning away. The tyres being made ready and now applied to 45. Andrea Barlesi, having done a pretty good job actually in that first stint, takes over the duties in the garage, studying the data and looking at the monitors now, but his work behind the wheel is certainly done. So car 20, Ludovic Badet leads. We're on lap 35, and number 1 is in second place, Nico Verdonk. Bert Langevin is third in the Audi. Fire, no, it's not out. More flames you can see. Dear oh dear, that could be the last we see of this Ginetta. Ever, because there's going to be precious little left, I fear, by the time all that blaze is out. replay of the car ablaze, and now the hoses having to be brought from one side of the track to the other. Almost the bulk of the extinguishers at Navarra are being emptied here. So the leaders thread their way past, and Ludovic Badet this time around comes into the pit lane. So makes his way down the pit road. So gives up the race lead, and that's going to put number 1 Nico Verdonk back into the lead of the race. Car number 10, incidentally, which was going well in the hands earlier on of Julien Jus, was taken over by Patrice Guela, and we'll see who gets in to replace Ludovic Badet this time. 38 still being shown as Giacomo Petrobelli, but we saw a driver change there. My guess is that Matteo Bobbi will do the middle stint like he did at Monza. So behind the safety car, frustrating for the drivers, all of this. The race continues, and the reason for the safety car, of course, is so the marshals can deal with that serious drama without the race having to be stopped. Number 20 then, number 10 I should say, back into the race. Sister car in the pit lane. And refueling done for number 20. That means that the tyres can go on the car now. These 2-part pit stops. Fuel and driver change part 1, tyres part 2. But it's important that car stays on the lead lap. Also in has come 37 Porsche, which was another car in the wars yesterday in the free practice session. And it was crashed yesterday by Bianconi, but Stefano Villa has taken it over. But they've brought the car back down the pit lane. The Sofrev team now having dealt with both of their cars, but I think number 20 is going to be lucky if it hangs on to that leading group here. It loses half a lap or so with the pit stop being made under the safety car. Could have been a lot worse had it been at full racing conditions. There's 37 there. Stefano Villa still in the pit lane. And in the haze, with all the extinguishing smoke drifting across the circuit, the field heads down towards turn 9, weaving around to maintain the warmth in the tyres here, so they've got them at the optimum temperature for when the race restarts. There's Diego Alessi in replay, doing the best part of a lap. I think we caught a glimpse of the car ablaze coming out of turn 4, and it was nearly at the end of the lap. He stopped just at turn 14. And he made that move into the pit lane and then thought better of it, but bringing it into the pit lane with all those other churns of fuel around wasn't a great idea. But frustratingly, where he stopped was nowhere near anybody with a fire extinguisher as well. Diego Alessi out of the car and walking away, and the car now looking very sorry for itself, being towed back to the pit lane. But the race director may just want a word with Diego about that, saying in future when you smell burning or people tell you it's on fire, stop where you are, because certainly that was a big drama for the marshals to attend to, and lack of visibility was a problem as well for the drivers going through that sequence of corners. Whether any oil has been spilt on the road, I don't know, but that is a very sorry sight. The only happy people, I suspect, are in Leeds in the parts department of Ginetta, who will already have their order books poised for tomorrow morning. They'll be assessing the damage there, thinking, right, what can we sell? But the Ginetta G50 out of the race for sure, and the field still behind the safety car makes its way over the timing line. So the clock ticking away at the top of the screen. There is Diego Alessi walking back to explain to the team that it was quite warm in that car. Yes, he's okay, but you can't say the same for the GT4 spec Ginetta G50, that's for sure. So Diego Alessi out of the race, very successful in the Maserati Trofeo a few years ago, and race winner with Luca Piri in the European GT3 Championship. Good to have him in the Blancpain series, but I'm afraid not for terribly long. He was only a lap or two into his stint. So number 1 Nico Verdonk leads for Ferrari, second is Bert Langin for Audi, and third is 33 Marcel Fassler. So after Andrea Piccini having his early stop duped by the thought the safety car might be apparent and briefly going a lap down, the car is back into third place. Fourth now, number 9 Porsche, is Raffaele Giammaria. Fifth is Gilles Vanelay. Sixth is Simone Knapp. Right, let's hear from Diego Alessi with Haley.
Diego, that was a tough one there for you. When did you decide to make the call to finally pull the car over?
Oh yes, I just had an oil leak from the differential. It was a shame because the car was very consistent with the race pace, and we were fighting with the front guys, and I was optimistic about the end of the race, but I think we had a special problem with the wire oil, and we have to fix it. If not, each race is like this. It's not a happy ending.
Thank you, Diego.
Not a happy ending, and just to pick up on the point, every race is like this. It's exactly the same problem, the car catching fire with this oil leak, that we saw at Monza. The consequences weren't quite as serious in Italy as here because the blaze was extinguished quite swiftly, but because the car did a lot more of a lap and it took longer to get to it, there's more damage being done to the car here than in the opening round of the championship. So 2 races, 2 retirements, 2 fires for the De Lorenzi Racing Ginetta team, and that therefore deprives Fabrizio Ferrari a chance to drive. He would have done the 3rd stint. Lawrence Tomlinson, the man that owns Ginetta, was quite chuffed to discover that a man called Ferrari was driving one of his cars. I think you've arrived as a car owner when Ferrari drives a Ginetta. So currently we're on lap 37 here at Navarra, round 2 of the Blancpain Endurance Series, and I think we may be ready to go green next time around. I think the incident zone is pretty much clear. Safety car continues for 1 more lap, but what you'll often find is that when the incident is clear, there'll be one last quicker lap by the safety car to let the drivers get everything back up to temperature, and they will be in business once again. So the race director, Eduardo Freitas, vastly experienced race official, will be keeping an eye on all of this, and it does look as though the pace has picked up once again, so you should be able to go green pretty soon. The other thing that's happening here as well is that the temperature is going up a little bit, and the overcast skies are not as apparent as they were. It's a bit brighter, and there is a rather slow Nissan. What's going on here? Jordan Tresson, very slow up towards turn 1, rather than keeping pace with those ahead, and that's going to go badly for car 20, because you saw there the erstwhile leader, Font Morel, now behind the wheel of the car, stuck in the pack. So he wants to try and find a way through if he can, sooner rather than later. But the problem is that if the cars ahead of you don't keep pace and amble around at a slow crawl, then you're going to lose even more time relative to the race leaders, who are at the moment over at turn 8. The WRT team that runs the Belgian Audi club, R8s, looking at the data, looking at the pictures, and if you catch a glimpse of the second car as they weave around, that's the one of Marcel Fassler, that will be in a real hurry to try and join in with the race leaders. How many back markers are between 2nd and 3rd? 3 slower cars, I think it is. 3 back markers to work past, and behind Fassler there is the blue and white Porsche of Gianluca Roda. And 45 Lamborghini, which we saw in 2nd place of Andrea Barlesi, was taken over by Jean-Pierre Valentini, but has lost a lap in the course of its pit stop. So the safety car is in at the end of this lap, so it was the correct assumption, a quicker lap for the drivers to get everything back up to temperature. The lights are out, so that means the safety car will peel in. The lights extinguished is the sign to the drivers that the safety car will be in at the end of that lap. The drivers will know that anyway now, because the teams get the information on the screen, the timing screen. They'll relay that over the radio to the drivers, and then we'll be in business this time. So the safety car peels in. Nico Verdonk makes his way up towards the last corner, and having worked his way past Bert Langin, now he's got to defend from Bert Langin and look for the second Audi. Marcel Fassler then, who is 3 cars further back. He's got traffic to get past, but he's going to be in a hurry as well. So we go racing once more then over the line, and it is Verdonk who pulls away from Bert Langin on the run over the timing line. Marcel Fassler 3rd, with Raffaele Giammaria right up behind him in the number 9 Porsche as they dive in towards turn 1. And there a challenge also being made on the inside, the number 7 Lamborghini that was started by Olivier Tielemans, looking for a way by, trying to gain a place on the inside line there. So Tielemans goes through. And there number 2 Louis Machiels down in 15th place, a lap adrift of the race leaders. He wants to try to get back into the hunt if possible, but has not yet been able to make up the lost time with the safety cars. And wide there goes Langin. He's made a mistake at 6. That compromises the exit speed. Well, he doesn't lose a place. That was only a back marker getting past him, Bas Linders. But he's lost time, which is more crucial here to the race leader, so the gap widens, and he's lost time relative to the car behind him, his teammate Marcel Fassler, who's therefore getting a bit closer to him. And Fassler taking with him Gianmaria, who has got through, has he? Yes, he has. The Porsche's gone by, up into third place, heading down towards turn 9. So now up into third spot, Raffaele Gianmaria, who's got back markers dicing ahead of him there. In 25 Lamborghini now, it's Nicolas Meyer-Melnhof. He was busy defending a place right ahead of the car that's now up into third spot overall. So Marcel Fassler, in fact, on the restart, doesn't gain anything. He loses a place. That's real frustration for him. Up towards the completion of the lap now comes the leading car, Nico Verdonk. Trying to build his race lead as Raffaele Gianmaria is about to work wonders, I suspect, in that Porsche. The car suddenly comes alive in stints 2 and 3. Not to say that Gianluca Roda is slow. He did a good job in the first stint, but just as we saw at Monza, the car just looks quicker as soon as Gianmaria gets into it. And then Paolo Roberti for the third stint, again, is a very, very good driver of these cars. Gianmaria storms up on the inside, picks off the back marking 458 there, which is the number 38 car of Matteo Bobbi, and that is Jean-Pierre Valentini, who spun coming out of the last corner. The Gulf Lamborghini is facing the wrong way, and the Nissan, incidentally, that we saw slow on that restart lap has come back into the pit lane. So, having had problems in qualifying, the Nissan GT4 car is in trouble in the race as well. The Lamborghini then has had a spin at the last corner, and Raffaele Gianmaria is in a real hurry then. He's up into third spot. There is Valentini rejoining with the aid of the gravel bed. He's back on track, but in so doing has lost an awful lot of time. So Jean-Pierre Valentini rejoins, makes his way now up over the timing line as the leaders work their way down towards the end of that back straight. The leading car, Nico Verdonk, trying to break away. He was 2.9 seconds quicker than Bert Langin last time, but we'd seen Langin make a mistake and run wide. But now the fight's on for second and third places in real terms, because you can see the way that Raffaele Gianmaria is closing up all the time to the Audi ahead of him. First of all, though, he's got to get past number 25, which is a lap back, but in 10th place overall. 25 is the Lamborghini that was started by Eugenio Amos. It is now being driven by Nicky Meyer-Melnhof, and the redoubtable Prince Albert von Turn on Taxis will do the last stint in that car. Here's the leader, Nico Verdonk, then, going well, and out on his own on the restart. He's been able to build quite a substantial lead. You can see it over the traffic. Ignore the Ford. There is the second place car, the Audi. Ignore the Lamborghini. Third is the Porsche behind. And Gianmaria now makes his move to the inside. Meyer-Melnhof almost fainted to defend there, didn't he? He didn't give Gianmaria the full width of the road, but the quicker Porsche goes through. Next target is going to be the second placed Audi. And that number 9 Porsche is still very definitely a factor for a race win here. By and large, Porsche's always a reliable GT car. We certainly saw at Monza it's good on the fuel, and now its pace is being picked up by Gianmaria. After its spin, the number 45 Lamborghini down in 17th place. So Jean-Pierre Valentini, the regular French GT racer, has fallen a long way down the order, but still going. Baz Linders in the Ford after the early pit stop for that car, lost quite a chunk of time. He's down in 24th place, out of the equation. The BMW Z4 there, look, trying to attack, coming down towards turn 9. And 43 is Simon Knapp. Now what he wants to do is get past the traffic, because the BMW is in 5th place overall. Ahead of him is number 6, Ricardo Bravo, who is a lap back. So the orange Lamborghini, a bit of a spoiler here, for as long as it is ahead of the BMW. Ricardo Bravo, who is the former Spanish GT champion, is depriving the BM a chance of going after Marcel Fassler for a 4th placed fight. The Z4, new to the championship this weekend, wasn't at Monza, but going great guns here. Louis Machiel's behind, is now in 14th overall, but a lap down on the race leaders. Challenge for second, coming out of the last corner, the Porsche on the inside of Raffaele Gianmaria storms past the Audi. So through goes the Auto Orlando Sport Porsche ahead of Bert Langin. And number 45, the Lamborghini that we saw having a spin a lap or so ago, is about to get a 10-second stop-go penalty for leaving the pit lane when the pit lane lights were on red. So after Andrea Barlesi's good stint getting the car up into 2nd place, it's going from bad to worse now, I'm afraid, for number 45, the Gulf Racing team, with the Lamborghini. Valentini a spin, but also this pit stop infringement there. Number 38, Matteo Bobbi, going well. That was the car that had real problems yesterday after the team were given new software for the ECU, and software and ECU did not like one another. They've tried to bypass it as much as they can, and other than change the wiring looms, they've done everything they can, and it takes 2 days to sort out the looms, so you can't do that. So They're keeping everything crossed, and the car is getting stronger over the course of the weekend. It's currently Matteo Bobbi, who was the 2003 FIA GT champion. The year he won it with Thomas Biaggi. Matteo Bobbi at the wheel at the moment, and the car is running a lap down, but in 11th place overall. There's Bet Langin in 3rd spot now, and Marcel Fassler behind is lapping quicker. Just wonder what's going on for Bet Langin. I know he's had a bit of traffic to worry about, and I know he's been dicing, and that costs you a bit of time as well, but his lap time since the restart have not been all that great, and the experienced Belgian driver is certainly being caught by his teammate Marcel Fassler now. Fassler, one-time DTM Mercedes driver, winner of the Spa 24 Hours. So Langin out of turn 15. Fassler is 2 cars back. We've got the back markers between them of Nicky Melnhof, and Matteo Bobbi is next. But look at the Lamborghini in a straight line. It's got the pace of the Audi to the point where it's trying to unlap itself almost. So Bert Langin either has a bit of a problem or is driving at a very conservative pace here to look after fuel. But people are saying fuel's not an issue around this circuit. So a bit of head scratching here. Is the Audi genuinely not able to match the pace of those cars around it? Last time around, Melnhof did that Lamborghini's best lap of the race, so he's well fired up and he wants to get past. He also wants to try and pull away from Matteo Bobbi, and he's being frustrated here by a car that's a lap ahead of him. Again, one of the fascinations of these longer races with different driver combinations is to see how a car rises and falls through the order depending on who's behind the wheel of it. So the number 25 Lamborghini, 7th in the Pro Cup at the moment for the all-pro driver combinations. Raffaele Giammaria, though, in 2nd place and lapping quicker than the leader. So this is where the battle is about to be joined between Nico Verdonk and Raffaele Giammaria in the Porsche. Quite a gap to make up, but as the cars now head through the final few corners of the lap, you see there, up on the inside of Bet Langin goes Melnhof and goes Matteo Bobbi, and Marcel Fassler is going to look for a way through as well. He's on the inside, the 2 Audis switch over, so Marcel Fassler now goes up into 3rd spot. Bert Langin drops to 4th. Has he got a problem? The car came in after 24 laps. We're now on lap 43. Ortelli did the opening stint. It was fuel and tyres and a driver change, nothing more than that, but certainly Bet Langin's laps have been a bit slower, and he's lost a chunk of ground on this lap. 2 back markers have unlapped themselves because they've got the speed to do it, and his teammate has gone by as well. Over the timing line go the 3rd and 4th place Audis then, and Langin's lap was a 43.8. That means he's lost 4 seconds to the Porsche. Raffaele Giammaria, one of the 2 quick drivers out there, because Nico Verdonk's upping his pace once again, so they're lapping in the mid to high 39s, everybody else in the 41s or slower. And the team manager of the Gulf Lamborghini that we've seen spinning and having pit lane infringements, the team manager there now being summoned to the race director. So that car's story is not yet over. Number 20, which led briefly when Ludovic Badet inherited the advantage under the safety car, has got Franck Morel at the wheel and is in now 9th place. It's on the lead lap still. Quick flash of the headlights there for number 3, which is the delayed Hexis Aston Martin. Julian Rodriguez at the wheel of it, looking for a way through the traffic. He's got the speed, of course, but he's so many laps behind now. An element of all of this is rather in vain. He is 11 laps down on the race leader, trying to pressure the 430 GT3 there into a mistake. And the car ahead is 42, which will go just a little wide coming out of turn 8. This is the car that is started by Eric Carroll and is now being driven by Michel Petit, whose team it is, operated by Sport Garage. So you've got Rodriguez here, who is 26th. You've got Petit, who is 15th. So it's not a genuine fight for position. Whoops, it almost comes to blows there as launching himself up on the inside comes Rodriguez. But behind them, on the lead lap, is number 20, I should say, Franck Morel, who is looking for a way by. He's got past one of those slower cars, but he doesn't want them fighting. He wants to have a clean run through. The car you saw in the pit lane is in for its stop and go. It's the Lamborghini number 45 we've been talking about. Raffaele Giammaria is now the quickest man on the circuit. He's just done number 9 Porsche's best lap. And there's a battle on as well for 6th place now. Number 7 goes over the timing line, which is another of the Pro Cup cars, this being Olivier Tielemans at the wheel, Mika Vähämäki having started that car, and Dennis Vollmeyer will do the 3rd stint. Puff of tar smoke as he locks up there. 8th place overall, that car. And ahead of him, there's a good fight going on for 6th place now. Gilles Vannelet, number 4 Aston, being caught by 43 BMW. There it is, just up the road. So 8th overall here, Olivier Tielemans. The sister car going well within the Pro-Am Cup, number 6, down in 14th place overall. Olivier Tielemans lapping a bit quicker, in fact, than those ahead, so there's a good fight developing, not just for 6th, but 6th, 7th and 8th are going to be together very shortly, with Aston Martin, BMW and Lamborghini. They'll be tied together, I reckon, within a couple of laps' time. Almost at the halfway point now. An hour and 36 to go here at Navarra in northern Spain, and you're looking at the leading car. Number 1, Nico Verdonk leads the way. Well, this car led briefly at Monza, but then had starter motor problems after the second mandatory stop, so Michael Bartels never really got into the race. It goes over the timing line now. Verdonk leads the way. There behind is the Porsche, trying to bring down the gap. Verdonk upping his pace. He's on a 39.7. That's the sort of pace that Rafael Giammaria is doing, and by hundredths of a second that time, Verdonk is quicker than the Porsche, so the gap just goes out ever so slightly. Number 18 goes by, which is the Pro-Am Porsche of Alessandro Bernetti. Right on his tail is Louis Machiels. That's a genuine battle. And number 10 there, Patrice Guillard, wants to lap the pair of them. He's a lap up, he's in 5th place. So Alessandro Bernetti, Louis Machiels fighting for a position within the Pro-Am Cup. They are in 12th and 13th places overall. They drop downhill and they're being caught by another of their class rivals, in fact, Ricardo Bravo in the orange Lamborghini. Well, Stefan Ortelli was the man that led early on, his car being driven by Bert Langin. Let's hear from Stefan with Haley.
Stefan, unfortunately, it looks like Bert seems to be slipping back. Is there any problems with the car?
There is no really problem. I mean, it's obviously when the heat is there, it's a bit more difficult we are more struggle than the Ferrari and the Porsche. It seems to be quicker when the track is hotter. When it was without the sun at the beginning of the race, I was pretty much fast with this car, and I'm sure it's going to be a bit better, but we need to keep the pace like that. It's a great track also, you know, it's really demanding, you know, so you always fight, and there is some demanding corners, so I think Ben will need to take his pace as well, and it will be for sure an interesting second part of the race.
Thank you.
And Stefan Ortelli knows of what he speaks, having been a GT and sports car racer for many, many years now. Well, 32 Bert Langin is in 4th place, and his lap times are getting better again, in fact, so as the temperatures fluctuate a little bit here, so does its pace, but he is lapping in the 140s, so is Fassler ahead of him, and the next lap that Bert Langin does is just fractionally slower, 141.068, so by 69 thousandths he misses out on doing something in the 140 bracket, but he's still staying round about the pace of his teammate. And behind them in 5th, Patrice Guillard falling away a little bit because he's not lapping on the same sort of speed. But then for 6th place, we've now got the BMW of Simon Knapp up ahead of Gilles Vannelet's Aston Martin. Olivier Tielemans behind them in 8th place. In 9th is number 20, Franck Morel, and 10th is Nicolas Meyer-Melnhof. The leading 9 at the moment, all on the same lap. And GT4 currently being headed by a Lotus 1-2, in fact, number 70 Leo Mansell ahead of 61 Lawrence Fry. Riding the curbs, Verdonk back into the race there after the stop-go penalty. Jean-Pierre Valentini down in 17th place. That's Olivier Tielemans, whose last lap was a slow one, a 1:45.094, and that's got a problem, that car, hasn't it? Because it just doesn't seem to have the pace that it needs to have. And it's ragged as well coming through turn 6, but you can see the way that Jean-Pierre Valentini, who is not normally on the same pace as Olivier Tielemans, is reeling him in. Tielemans is going to get out of the way here and bring that car to the pit lane. At Monza, during the pre-qualifying session for the opening round, it had this problem of accelerating and then suddenly dying, and the car would get back into life almost as though it were on the pit lane speed limiter. That wasn't the problem, but it had the same effect, and it rather looks as though the car has lost all pace again here. And so Olivier Tielemans will try and limp it round to the pit lane, the Lippert Motorsport car that he shares with Mika Vähämäki and Dennis Vollmeyer, tumbling down the order then as it limps round to the pit lane. Nico Verdonk having just pulled away a little bit last time, and there you can see storming through number 10, Patrice Guillard, still in a good 5th place, and ahead of him, getting it all wrong there, is Louis Machiels, who slides out wide. So Machiels, who was a lap down anyway, gives track position at least to the number 10, 458. Machiels is 12th, Guillard is 5th, but that's made Patrice's life very easy. No longer does he have to really fight away past the back marker. Slow cars get out of the way of number 6, Ricardo Bravo, whose teammate Olivier Tielemans has just come into the pit lane in the sister car. So one of the Leipzig Motorsport cars going well, the other, there it is, in problems. The Rhino's energy drink car comes down the pit lane, and Olivier Tielemans may clamber out. Yes, it looks a bit terminal, this, doesn't it? The Dutchman gets out of the car. Former World Touring Car racer, former DTM racer, new to the championship this year, but getting a bit frustrated, I think, that these mechanical problems keep intervening. The car looks good, sounds good. We know these cars can win in GT3 racing, but certainly the Leipzig cars in the last couple of races that we've seen have been just a little bit frail. So the engine cover off, and engineers peering into the engine bay. Tielemans being encouraged back into the car, perhaps now to just treat this like a test session and see what can be done to cure the problem. But yes, out and walk away, but I think the team have had a rather stern word and said no, we're not done yet, get back in. 88 there, almost clashing into the side of Patrice Guélard, is the GT4 spec Aston Martin. The car was started by Giuseppe De Pasquale, and it is still being shown as Pasquale behind the wheel, but the team not always as vigorous as they should be in making sure the little switch for the correct driver identity is in the right place. So Philippe Broodkeuren and Raffaele Sangiolo are the other two drivers of that car, and I suspect it's going to be Broodkeuren behind the wheel now. Sangiolo, another experienced driver, to do the last stint. In GT4, ahead of the Aston Martin, of course, is looking good for Lotus. There's the car that's second, 61, just turning into the corner. Lorenz Frey at the wheel, and number 2, Louis Machiels, trying to get back into contention. His next target is the number 38, Matteo Bobbi Ferrari, but actually Matteo Bobbi is pulling away, as you might expect, because he really is a pro driver. The fact that the car is a lap down is more to the fact that it's perhaps not got the ultimate pace with its misfire dramas of the ECU this weekend. So Louis Machiels falling away, Matteo Bobbi still in the top 10, but a lap adrift of the race leaders, and having been ushered back towards the car now is ushered back towards the garage. Number 7, Olivier Tielemans, then, is not in the immediate future going anywhere. Here over the line, Nikolaus Meyer-Melnhof, still in 9th place, and a lap down on the race leaders. Frustrating, really, for that team, because the car has got the speed now, hasn't it, relative to Bert Langein's Audi, which is stuck there behind. Up they go through turns 2 and 3. In fact, it's not Bert Langin, it is Marcel Fassler. That's another car that the Lamborghini has managed to unlap itself from. Downhill they drop, and Fassler trying to find his way through. But Meyer-Melnhof, yes, does give him racing room. I was fearing he might try and make a battle out of this, but now the Audi goes through, works its way ahead of the white Blancpain-backed Lamborghini. Now the race order, Nico Verdonk leading in the Pro Cup ahead of Raffaele Gianmaria, Marcel Fassler 3rd, and Bert Langin is 4th there. Patrice Guélard 5th, and in 6th and 7th places you've got the Ferrari and then Lamborghini, number 25, we've just been talking about, of Nikolaus Meyer-Melnhof ahead of Matteo Bobbi. Then number 7 in the pit lane, Olivier Tielemans, with his troubled Lamborghini at the moment. The Pro Cup being for the combinations of drivers where you've got all of them being professional drivers. Pro-Am, of course, is a mixture of having the gun for hire against the quick amateur racers, or indeed to get in the Pro-Am Cup you are a career racing driver still without major international successes. So a number of young single-seater racers can get in there without having done a huge amount of winning. This car looking very strong in the Pro-Am Cup, the BMW Z4, which leads the way. Simon Knapp at the wheel of it, former Formula Ford racer, ahead of the number 20 Sofrev Ferrari, and then number 2 the Vita 4-1 Louis Machiels driven Ferrari. 4th there is the number 6 Lamborghini, Ricardo Bravo at the wheel, ahead of the number 18 Porsche, now being driven by Alessandro Bonetti, and 6th in that class, number 42 Michael Petit at the wheel. But you can see lower down the order there, 1 or 2 of the cars out of the race because of Jack Gerber's Ferrari's damage we know about, for example, being in the barriers and going no further. One of the Hexis AMR cars in trouble in a sense. Number 4, Gilles Vanelay, 7th, the team manager being summoned to the race director. We've not seen anything untoward, I don't think, from that car. But the GT3 Aston has attracted the attention of the race officials for some reason. There are the 2 Hexis Astons, in fact, coming towards us. Sandwiching number 20, Franck Morel, in 8th place overall. And 2nd within the Pro-Am Cup, in fact, is Franck Morel for the Sofrev ASP Autosport Promotion team. Ferrari drops downhill. Morel's next target is Gilles Vannelet, the man ahead of him in the number 4 Aston Martin, and Vannelet busy flashing his headlights at the back markers to say, come on, out of my way please. Need to get past in a hurry here, which he does, goes up on the inside. Number 31 is Fabien Michel at the wheel now of the car that leads the Gentleman Trophy. It was started by Georges Cabin, and now Fabien Michel, having taken it over, comfortably leading the class, which has dwindled a little bit after we lost the number 22 Ferrari early on in the race. Philippe Scherer having an accident in this car that Lionel Comol put on the class pole position. 38 there is Matteo Bobbi working his way through traffic, going ahead of the Giorgio Pioli, Stefano Bianconi, Stefano Villa Porsche, which was the car that was quite badly damaged in the practice sessions yesterday. It ducks out of the way, everybody storms by, and behind is the Nissan, back into the race of Jordan Tresson, but still it would appear struggling a bit on the reliability front this weekend. 32, Bert Langin then, turning his way up towards turn 3, falling away once more from Marcel Fassler. So the car's pace is okay, it's keeping it ahead of many, but it's inconsistent. Some laps good, some laps are slower. Second they were, Langin, Ortelli and Albuquerque at Monza after a puncture earlier on. Lotus 1-2 within GT4, with the Piscopo Mansell Lotus ahead of number 61, now Lawrence Frey, with Rolf Maritz and Freddie Bath doing the driving. Third there is the Philippe Brunker, Raffaele Sangiolo and Giuseppe De Pasquale driven Aston Martin. And because of the safety car intervention, the leading Lotus, there it is, has got the best part of a lap, give or take a couple of corners, over the number 61 car. So it's a massive advantage that Leo Mansell now has in the GT4 battle. You can see the car that is behind is the 88 Aston, which has not been running at the same pace anyway, so they were the class winners at Monza, Eduardo Piscopo and Greg and Leo Mansell, and it looks at the moment as though they're in a very comfortable lead indeed, so they can afford to just slacken the pace off a little bit maybe, drive well within themselves and make sure they don't put a wheel wrong here, because another class win is there for the taking, that's for sure. Out of turn 8, now the run down this very fast straight. Good place to do so, out braking at the very end of into the tight turn 9 right-hander. The Blancpain Endurance Series second round of 5, because after Navarra it goes to Spa, Manicourt for an evening race, and then the UK round at Silverstone second weekend in October. The regulations say you've got to have 2 or 3 drivers per car, 2 mandatory pit stops, and not only do you have to change tyres, but you also got to refuel at those, and in most cases they will change drivers as well if they can on the hour mark. You've got the 4 classes really within GT3, Pro, Pro-Am, the Gentleman Trophy, and now the GT3 Cup within the Gentleman Trophy. There's the class of the GT4 cars as well. You've got to be in the top 10 in each class to score points. And this weekend, 11 different brands represented on the grid. Ferrari, Aston Martin, Lamborghini, Porsche, Audi, Ford, Lotus, Nissan, Maserati, Ginetta, and add BMW to the list for this weekend. Number 4, Gilles Vannelet, is about to be given a drive-through penalty for overtaking under the safety car. That's why the team manager of the Aston was being summoned to the race director, and that means that Nicolas Meyer-Melnhof, who was right on his tail anyway in the Lamborghini, is about to be gifted 8th place. Here, meantime, is Bas Linders in the Ford GT. Problems for the BMW, having just worked his way into the top 6. It's a bit smoky. Is that mechanical smoke or is that tyre against bodywork? I fear it is mechanical. Or is it a bit low? Maybe on that rear corner it is, isn't it? It's got a puncture possibly, or broken suspension. The tyre looks inflated, but it's low, as though the whole car has dropped on the right-hand side. So it looks like it's a possible suspension drama here for the number 43 BMW that's limping back to the pit lane. Desperate luck this, because the car up into 6th place. You can see the way it's crabbing its way back to the pit lane, and as the car has sat down, so the smoke is there as the bodywork does scuff the tyre. Simon Knapp wanting to bring it back as quick as he can, but without doing any more damage to that car. So faster racing with DB Motorsport running the car this weekend. First time out in the Blancpain Endurance Series, I'm afraid to say, are about to be in the pits. And it looks as though it's going to be a lengthy stop. So Simon Knapp crawls round, trying to come back at a speed that won't lose them too much time in the hope they can get the car back in the race. But what he doesn't want to do is go so quickly that he damages the car. What's caused that, don't know. Whether there was any contact, whether he's rattled over a curb at high speed, it's hard to know. But into the pit lane comes the BMW, and that's another one, I'm afraid, for Haley to go and investigate. Far higher mortality rate here than we had at Monza. So with the demise of the BMW, number 20 into the lead of the class here. This is the Pro-Am Cup class leading Ferrari Franck Morel. Remember, it was the car that Ludovic Badet drove in the first stint very effectively and did briefly lead the race in, and Jean-Luc Bobelic will drive for the final part of the race, the experienced French driver. There's the BMW that has finally been dragged back to the pit lane, but that might well be the last we see of that car. More team managers being summoned to the race director as well, so I think we might have a few more drive-throughs being thrown around soon. And we do, because Louis Machiels is now being given a drive-through for overtaking under the safety car, and that's significant because he would be third in the Pro-Am Cup, the leader of which you're looking at in the pit lane. Leader no more because of the problems, but the Pro-Am Cup now having a real shuffle of the order, partly because of mechanical maladies like this and partly because of drive-through penalties. So the BMW heads for its garage. Little trolley jacks go underneath, turn the car around, in it goes. And Jeroen de Boer is there ready to take over, but whether or not the car will go back in the race is a moot point. Clearly the car with a problem. Out gets Simon Knapp. In gets Jeroen de Boer. And drive-throughs, as I say, for Gilles Vannelet, who's yet to serve that, but it's been on the timing screen for a couple of laps now, and now also Louis Machiels, number 2, is being given a drive-through penalty as well. 45, Jean-Pierre Valentini heading towards us after his stop-go, down in 16th place. Bas Leinders takes the track plate off him at least. Down in 21st overall is Bas Leinders. He can't really salvage much in terms of the overall position here. He's 6 laps down, but what he can do is just drive the car as fast as he can. Here, a masterclass in how to drive a GT3 car. Down through the gears, sets the car up, and now back on the power. Just listen to that noise. Back down through the box, checking his mirrors, checking what's around him, making sure that he's not coming up on any traffic as well. All the time looking for the optimum line through the corners. Flat out, Bas Leinders trying to bring that car back into contention. And the carrot ahead of him, if you like, is a car that's in the top 4 that he can chase, so he can gauge his pace relative to that of the GT3 cars that haven't lost ground earlier on, because there he is right on the tail of one of the 2 WRT-run Belgian Audi Club Audi R8 LMSs, dropping downhill. The Ford GT then in 21st place, but he can gain a couple of spots here before the end because he's on the same lap as the next couple of cars ahead of him. So if they carry on like this, and given the way that other teams have had problems, 21st now, but might be in the mid-teens by the end of the afternoon if the Mark VDS Racing Team Ford GT can keep out of any further trouble. So we've had cars, as we've seen, with problems during the race. We also lost one even before the start. The Maserati never made it onto the grid. In fact, that had an axle problem, and so one of the 11 brands here, but not on the grid. Down through the gears goes Bas Leinders. Quick check at the mirror, looking for the clipping points all the time, looking for the apex of the corners. Turns in, power down, where possible, using the curve as part of the racing line. Down a couple of gears, turns right, back on the power, up through the box. You can see how much you have to work around this circuit. There's very little respite for the drivers. The back straight and the pit straight, about the only chance really you get to catch your breath. This is the start and finish line now. Speed building all the while. Into top. And now you've got to brake, change down and turn all at the same time. Down he goes, down through the box, through turn 2. Down another couple of gears into turn 3. Bas Leinders hard at work then. Staying on the tail of the Audi as best he can. Makes a great noise, the Ford GT. Very charismatic car, recreating effectively the Ford GT40 days. And you see these cars not only in GT3, but in the GT1 World Championship as well. Now in the pit lane, there is the disappointing sight of the BMW Z4. Shock absorber problem is apparently the cause of its problem, the pit stop. So the Z4 hopefully can get back out again. useful test exercise, if nothing else, for the team now, but a lot of time is being lost here. Squad hard at work. And a car that's normally to be found in the 1 hour races of the FIA European GT3 Championship now turning its attention to the longer endurance discipline. Here's the race leader, though, Nico Verdonk, who a few laps ago was starting to feel a bit more of a threat coming from the Auto Orlando Sport Porsche behind him, but that's not really materialised. Raffaele Giammaria hasn't been able to maintain the lap times quick enough to really bring down the gap against Nico Verdonk, so they go across the line now. At least the leader goes across the line. He's got probably 2/3 of the length of the pit straight between him and the second-placed Porsche, which in turn is being caught just a little by Marcel Fassler in the number 33 Audi. There's the leader, but across the line has gone Giammaria, whose lap time has gone up again. He's very nearly a second slower than Fassler on that lap. What's going on here for the Porsche? The car did 24 laps in its first stint, and of course that was a relatively short stint, people coming in under the safety car in order to change tyres, refuel and change drivers, but 2 slowish laps by Giammaria. Could be down to traffic. Maybe he's trying to just eke out a bit more fuel economy here, try and get this so that it can go to the end of the hour and they can put Paolo Roberti in for the last 60 minutes. Up towards turn 8 goes the Porsche. Nico Verdonk still up front. Having said that, of course, we've had an extra safety car period since the original round of pit stops, so that should have helped the fuel economy to a degree. But this is why endurance racing is so fascinating, and the brain's trust on the pit wall, trying to work out exactly where they stand in the situation. Don't think we're going to have the requirement for the last gasp refueling that we saw at Monza. Matteo Bobbi then out of 38. Carlos Iaconelli to get in. And this is the Scuderia Vittoria car. Short middle stint that from Matteo Bobbi. So Carlos Iaconelli with, what have we got now, an hour and 14 minutes still to go, gets on board. Is he going to be there behind the wheel at the very end of the race? Scuderia Vittoria, British-based team. Piers Maserati, Danny Buxton, Tom Ferrier, all racers themselves. The people that owns this team, and this car has been pretty busy. It did the Blancpain round at Monza, then it went and did 2 British GT races at Alton Park and won one of them from the back of the grid. Then it had a 2-hour race, I should say, at Snetterton last week. Now 3-hour race here, so the Mule, as it's been dubbed, is certainly getting its miles in, that's for sure. Now look at the Aston Martin there, number 8, which is the Eddie Renard car. Behind, you'll see is Leo Mansell. Now just look ahead of the Aston Martin. That's the car that's second in GT4. In other words, Leo Mansell, being monstered there by Nicolas Meyer-Melnhof, is about to lap the car that's second in GT4. We saw them a little while ago and it was the best part of a lap lead. Now it's about to happen. 3 wide, cars dive into turn 5, but they're up on the inside. Number 70, Leo Mansell, goes a lap ahead of the second placed GT4 Lotus. Some of that is down to the pace of the drivers, some of it is down to the safety car situations we've had, but either way, what that now means is that it's a very comfortable advantage that Greg Mansell will be given for the 3rd stint in the race. Meyer-Melnhof there, 25 in 8th place overall. The Lamborghini heading down towards us at turn 8, and Meyer-Melnhof's next target, Gilles Vannelet, who has had the drive-through penalty notified for him for overtaking under the safety car. There in second in GT4, Lorenz Frey in the Toyota Switzerland sponsored Lotus. Slightly incongruous backer to have, and behind is Bert Longchamp, still in 4th place. But look at Patrice Guélard now riding the curbs there because he's desperate to stay on the back of the 4th placed Audi. This is another battle developing for position, and Longchamp, because of these slow laps that he's been doing, he's being reeled in by Patrice Guélard, who at the moment is the 2nd fastest man on the circuit. The experienced Frenchman here is going great guns right there on the back of Longchamp, and we could yet get a change for 4th place before the next round of pit stops. Over the timing line goes Nico Verdonk as the race leader. Giammaria's Porsche still 2nd. Fassler will be 3rd, and then here 4th and 5th coming over the line. You've got Longchamp and Guélard, and Patrice Guélard lines up to have a go on the inside, but he can't get through for 4th there. Out of turns 2 and 3 they will turn, and the gap nothing at all. Now here sometimes is where Longchamp is a bit susceptible to pressure and goes wide. Right on his tail is Guélard. Ferrari dives to the inside line, heading towards turn 4, can't do it. Longchamp stays ahead, drop downhill towards turn 5 now. Gap widens ever so slightly. The Audi team ready in the pit lane to receive a car, as having just got a lap down, in fact, number 61 Lotus has come in, and so the Audi team ready. Felipe Albuquerque ready to take over number 32, and Bert Langin here, you get the feeling he's on borrowed time, don't you, for that fourth place. Patrice Guillard is behind him, and the svelte 458 lines up to have a go on the inside. Can't do it though. Bert Langin doesn't have to defend, he's just got enough grunt in a straight line, enough pace to hang on to the position as they go through turn 9. Can he hang on before he pits? Gilles Vannelet, who I was talking about with his drive-through, is now serving that, and potentially that will give Nicolas Meyer-Melnhof a better chance now of moving up into second within the battle they're having, the two of them. In fact, Meyer-Melnhof, 8th overall, will go 7th overall now and gets closer to his class opposition, and Ricardo Bravo is the one closing on Vannelet now for the lead, the second place I should say, in the Pro-Am Cup. Langin does pit then, so he was able to hang on to 4th until the end of his stint. Comes in now, team ready, and so Langin to give way to Felipe Albuquerque. Second, the team was at Monza, hampered by punctures and a late race fuel stop, and Felipe Albuquerque here has got 70 minutes effectively of driving duties to do. Bert Langin out of the car, so Stefano Ortelli having done a good, if short, opening stint. Bert Langin having to cope with the safety car periods, but has fallen down from 4th place, having effectively been battling for the race lead after the safety car period, the first of the two. And now it's up to Felipe Albuquerque to be a hero, and they're going to, I was going to say keep it on the original set of tyres. No, they do jack it up in the end. The tyres hidden behind the other side of the car, so new boots will go on for the last stint. 4 mechanics only can work on the car, so out they come with the tyres. So Bert Langin having done his work for the day, and the 61 Lotus now with Rolf Maritz at the wheel going down the pit lane back into the race. Old Michelin's off, new Michelin's on. So are we going to have an Audi versus Ferrari fight to the end? Felipe Albuquerque then rejoins. The car will of course lose places while it's pitting like this, and Bert Langin brought the car in at the end of lap 59. It will, I think I'm right in saying, go a lap down here. So Nico Verdonk leads the way, and indeed a lap down goes Felipe Albuquerque. He should gain that lap back on the pit stop for the number 1 leading car, but he can't afford to lose any time at the start of this stint. And Marcel Fassler there is right up behind him. Fassler of course being 3rd overall. He's done a very long middle stint in that car. The other driver that will get in, Greg Franchi, the former single-seater racer, the Belgian driver who will do the last stint. So Felipe Albuquerque lets the quicker car go on his outlap while he's getting himself up to speed and everything up to temperature, getting the warmth into the new set of Michelin tyres that's just been put onto the Audi. But 2 laps, 3 laps certainly into the stint, Albuquerque's pace, I would have thought, is going to be mighty impressive, and he needs to be as well to get that car back into contention. The number 9 Porsche of Raffaele Giammaria last time around fell away from Nico Verdonk, and in the last stint it's going to be Michael Bartels versus Paolo Roberti, number 1 to number 9. 11.8 seconds is the gap now between Verdonk and Giammaria, so it needs to stay round about that or less really to give the number 9 Porsche any chance of scoring a second win in a row in the Blancpain Endurance Series. There is Albuquerque wriggling his way through the traffic, and now look, as things come up to temperature, so he's a bit more confident to stay on the back of Marcel Fassler's sister car, the Ford GT there bailing for the pit lane. Bas Linders comes in, and that means that Maxime Martin will have his stint behind the wheel, the Belgian driver yet to have a go behind the wheel of that car. Down the pit road comes the Ford, and there, one of the Hexis Astons in strife. That's the Gilles Vannelet car that has either overshot its pit box or made a pit stop and has had a problem leaving, but I think it's overshot looking at the way that the car was on the pit apron. So the mechanics push it back, and it is going to lose its class lead this lap through because it's going to lose its second place in class, I should say, to Ricardo Bravo. Right, so Vannelet's car in the pit lane, and a drive-through penalty now being applied. There are so many of them being handed out to number 42. This is the Michel Petit, Christophe Jouet, Eric Cayrol Ferrari. That's for overtaking under the safety car. Right, there's the Hexis Aston, number 4. So Gilles Vannelet, who's already had a drive-through, by the look of it, overshot the pit box. And the car for the last stint is going to be in the hands of Fred Makovici, but it's effectively now 2 laps down on the race leaders. So not even, I fear, the heroics of Fred Mako are going to be able to get the car into contention now. Maybe able to gain a few places before the very end. The Ford GT, Maxime Martin at the wheel, is now on its way up the pit lane, back into the race. New tyres applied to the number 4 Aston. But Fred Makovici falling further and further down the order here. The Ford GT, by the way, up into 19th spot now, so it has been able to gain ground. And the race with 65 minutes to go, still being headed by number 1 Nico Verdonk. Out sprints Greg Franchi to relieve Marcel Fassler. So the car that was in 3rd place comes into the pit lane, and the Swiss driver hops out. Belgian hops in. Driver change and refueling the first part of the pit stop. Then the car will be up on the jacks for a new set of tyres. And what this now means is that Patrice Goëlard is up into 3rd place, and that car shouldn't be discounted. Jérôme Policon will take over. We know how quick he is. Another experienced former single-seater racer turned sports car star. Still the fuel goes in to try and get the car to the end of the race. And then up goes the Audi. The new set of tyres will go on to the 33. 32, Felipe Albuquerque in 6th after his pit stop. A lap back, but as I say, he should get that back when Nico Verdonk pits. So 11.8 seconds was the gap between Nico Verdonk and Raffaele Giammaria, but it's widened because next lap through, 6/10 quicker, goes the Ferrari than the Porsche. So although Raffaele Giammaria's stint started well, he's not been able to maintain the same good lap times and indeed maintain the gap. It's been up and down a little bit. Away goes Greg Franchi then, the Belgian driver, back into the race, and a very good, solid, fast pit stop that by the Audi team. So Greg Franchi heads towards the exit of the pit lane. Man that began in Formula Ford, he's had his spell in Formula Renault, in Formula 3, but then turned his attention to Belcar, the Belgian GT Championship for a time. He's raced in the Eurocup Megane Trophy, and in fact was a winner in the FIA European GT3 Championship in the 2nd round of the series at the Algarve in race 2 there. Nico Verdonk leading the way. Louis Machiel's Ferrari number 2 is now, you can see there, in 8th place, but under pressure, right on his tail, is Ricardo Bravo. These 2 cars both run in the Pro-Am Cup, so it's a battle not only for 8th on the road, but also for a class position. The class is being led by number 20, the Ferrari 458 that Franck Morel drives for the Sofrev team, but for 2nd in class, Louis Machiels versus Ricardo Bravo. Here they come, Ferrari versus Lamborghini over the line. Alessandro Bonetti, who was 4th in the class, has just pitted, in fact, to the Porsche. So, as their number 10, Patrice Goëlard, is in to give way to Jérôme Policon. Now, that might be a pretty shrewd move, actually. Get Jérôme into the car before Bartels or Robert to get into numbers 1 and 9, and therefore just give him another couple of laps to get himself bedded in. And therefore, that should mean that he's bang on the pace for when he needs to try and take the fight to Bartels and Roberti for the final stint of the race. Down the pit road there is the Ferrari 430, car 42, which is serving its drive-through, and Richard Petit is at the wheel of it. Christophe Jouet will take over. The car started by the experienced French driver Eric Cairol. So the fuel has gone in, the tyres go on. Jérôme Policon is behind the wheel. Patrice Goëlard, having done a good stint, bringing that car up into 3rd place, relays information, but he's lost now on this pit stop 2 places back to the Audis. So Jérôme Policon falls back behind Greg Franchi and Felipe Albuquerque. So what we now have is Nico Verdonk leading Raffaele Giammaria, Franck Morel 3rd, but those 3 cars have to serve another stop. So 4th is Greg Franchi's Audi, 5th is Felipe Albuquerque's Audi, and 6th, 25, Nicolas Meyer-Melnhof, he's got to make another stop. And this car, 7th, in the hands now of Jérôme Policon. There is 33, Greg Franchi, who, after his final stop, or the car's final stop, is a lap down on the leaders, but he'll gain that back next time around. They are long stops, but that's partly because of the necessity to do the driver change in the fuel as one part. And you can see the Nissan has come in again, 63. Chris Ward, the 1993 champion of Alton Formula Ford series winner, about to get on board that car, the senior Silverstone race instructor. And this is becoming a longer stop than it should be for number 10, as though the car won't restart or something has gone wrong. Number 20 goes by, that's in third place, but it's got another stop to make yet. Number 20 for Jean-Luc Bobelic to take over, Franck Morel leading the Pro-Am Cup. But number 10 still in the pit lane, and there's a problem for sure here. Jérôme Policon should by now be back out on the circuit. And whatever it is, it's in the cockpit where the attention is, isn't it? Mechanic leaning in, or mechanics, plural, one on either side. But what's the problem? It's not going anywhere. Door closed in resignation by the mechanic there, and having just got up into third place, the Ferrari now is not only losing places, it is losing laps. And having suggested that it shouldn't be discounted, you can now discount that car, because it is now 2 laps down on the race leaders. 32, Felipe Albuquerque goes through, and as the number 10 Ferrari sadly is pushed away, that is the end of any chance of a decent result for the number 10 Sofrev car. Just also makes you wonder whether that same problem may rear its head on number 20 when Franck Morel comes in currently in third place to give way to Jean-Luc Bobelic. Is it a freak, or is it something manifesting itself within the Sofrev cars? So 33, Greg Franchi then, currently in fourth overall, and the best placed of the double stoppers. In other words, this car, fuel allowing, can go to the end now. They don't have to make another pit stop unless it suddenly needs just a few more drops, but most teams saying fuel is not an issue around here. There's the second place Porsche, Raffaele Giammaria, and their 32 is the fifth placed Audi, Felipe Albuquerque, who was lapping quicker last time than Greg Franchi. If that Porsche would get out of the way of the Audis, we'd have a genuine battle between them for fourth and fifth places now. So we know number 10 Ferrari is in problems. Let's find out exactly what Julien Juste, the original driver of the car, is with Haley.
Julien, sadly number 10 is sat in the garage. Will he get back out?
I don't know, there's something wrong with the gearbox, because Jérôme tried to start after the pit stop, and the gearbox doesn't work. He didn't put the first gear, so we tried to fix and go again, but it's a shame because everything going well, and we fought for the podium, so I don't know.
Thank you.
The two leaders are both in the pit lane. You can see the Porsche in the background with Raffaele Giammaria getting out, Paolo Roberti getting in, but also further up the pit lane, number 1 has come in, Nico Verdonk then, to give way to Michael Bartels. So at the end of lap 66 they have done the top 2 cars into the pit lane. So you've got Verdonk in, and Bartels takes over the car. There it is, having new tyres put on, and the number 9 Porsche likewise, Paolo Roberti getting in, fuel and tyres. Nico Verdonk standing by the number 1 car, and the team hoping that there's, sorry, Michael Bartels I should say there, the team hoping that there's no drama with the starter motor like there was at Monza. Otherwise another potential win is going to go out of the window, but it's going to be fascinating to see how close the two cars are when they set off into this last stint. Michael Bartels taking the last stint in the car and is ready to go. How's the Porsche getting on? I think it's still up on its jack, so the number 1 Ferrari leads the way back into the race. Down the pit lane, what about the Porsche? Still up on its jacks, isn't it? So it's going to be a big ask this for Roberti. He needs a safety car really to bring him into contention. And likewise the Audis here, look, because they are still a long, long way behind, although only now up to a proper pace is Bartels. There's the Porsche, Paolo Roberti having to obey the pit lane speed limits. And when he gets over the line now, he can accelerate away, which he will do. Can he stay ahead of the Audis? He should be able to. There they are coming onto the pit straight now, but the Porsche, yeah, is okay. It goes into turn 2, clear of the 3rd and 4th placed Audis. Now for the moment, number 20 Franck Morel leads the race, but he's got to make his last pit stop, so it's a phony lead in a way. There is 32, Felipe Albuquerque on the back of Greg Franchi. But you can see the way that although these two cars are together, certainly the leaders, the Ferrari and Porsche, have been able to break away from these two cars. And likewise, in his last stint, Nico Verdonk doing a good job of building up the advantage. So there is the on-track leader, but we'll have to make another pit stop, and so the number 20 Ferrari can expect to drop down the order. But it's how far down it drops that is the question. Opposition in the Pro-Am class coming from the number 2 Louis Machiel's car, well, that's had to serve a drive-through penalty, so it's an inflated lead that Franck Morel has been able to build up over the course of this stint. Ludovic Badet having led the race outright early on, but although the safety cars, when they pitted, went against them as far as the overall situation was concerned, they've still done okay as far as a class lead is concerned. Right, into the pits has come Louis Machiels, so there he is, and Paul van Splunteren is going to take over. Scurries around the car with his cushion, ready to get on board. The Dutch Porsche dealer who began many, many moons ago racing in Sports 2000s. He was the 1988 Dutch Alfa Romeo champion and then had a few years away building up his businesses, but has come back in recent years in the Dutch Touring Car Championship and in GT3 and GT4 racing. He has the concession to build the GT4 homologated Porsche, for example, and Paul van Splunteren then gets on board. Good job as ever has been done by Nick Homerson, Louis Machiels in their stints, although we did see Louis Machiels running wide over a curb and he got that drive through as well, but the speed has been there. New tyres going on the car, so door opens, wires plugged in for crash helmet to radio, transponder setting adjusted and seatbelts tightened also. Paul van Splunteren will have just under 55 minutes remaining, and also in the pit lane has come another of the Lamborghinis 25, which is a car that runs within the Pro Cup Pro class, and that's Nicolaas Meyer-Melnhof to give way to Albert von Turnhout-Taxis, the car having been at but not raced at Monza because of its accident at the end of qualifying. Right, there's van Splunteren going nowhere. Come on, what's happening? Is this gearbox? Is this starter motor? Goes now. Whether he was aware they'd finished the work on the car, I'm not sure, but he needed a bit of a hurry up. Anyway, the car is in the race now, but time lost, which they could ill afford, really, with just a few seconds wasted at the very end of the pit stop there. Albert von Turnhout-Taxis will be aboard the 25 Lamborghini. So Franck Morel still leading the way as Nicolaas Meyer-Melnhof walks into his mechanic virtually there, who rushes around the car with the new tyres. Take the old ones away, and that car in a good 6th place at the moment. Carlos Iaconelli is 7th behind, and Fred Makovici is 8th. I'll give you a rundown of the order again once we've had number 20 serve its last pit stop, because that's going to have a real effect on the classification. Number 9, Raffaele Gianmaria's car, now with Paolo Roberti at the wheel, has just gone by and is lapping slower than Michael Bartels. So the gap between the leaders therefore is extending, but it might just be coming down a fraction between Roberti and Felipe Albuquerque. Away goes Albert von Turnhout-Taxis. This glorious looking, symphonic sounding Lamborghini back into the race, and after the disappointments of Monza, it's looking good for a decent overall finish here, that's for sure. Behind it, the GT4 Lotus, and there is the leading car, number 20, Franck Morel, but Jean-Luc Bobelic is the man that will take over, and of course they have to make that pit stop, so it will drop down the order as a result. Franck Morel very quick within the French GT Championship, going well in this car now, and just banging in consistent lap times. They may not be as quick as some of the pro drivers around him, but he's doing a good job, good solid job as well, and it's being consistent and keeping out of trouble that is part and parcel of how to do well within the Blancpain Endurance Series. How much longer is he going to leave it though before he pits? Drivers must do 20% of the distance the car covers in order to score points, so I would imagine they're going to have probably just another couple of laps before they bring him in and put Jean-Luc Bobelic behind the wheel. So number 20 Ferrari then is about to lose its lead anyway, in a sense, because you can see Michael Bartels behind. Over the line comes the number 1 Ferrari, lapping 2.5 seconds a lap quicker, so that's the difference between a quick amateur driver and a real pro driver. Michael Bartels, who runs the team, finds the sponsorship, goes racing, takes it very, very seriously. I don't mean that as a criticism, but you only have to look at what the team is like now and what it used to be in its Vitaphone racing team days. Everything is ultra professional, whether it's in the paddock, on the pit wall, mechanic discipline, everything is just done to the highest standard, and it has worked for them with a number of titles. Michael Bartels, who having moved from the DTM into GT racing, won the FIA GT Championship in 06, again in 08 and in 09, and then last year, along with Andrea Bertolini, a regular co-driver, was the inaugural FIA GT1 World Champion. and the Ferrari 458 on the tail of Franck Morel. Quick flash of the lights from Bartels to say, I'm coming past, but oh no, you're not, because for the moment this is a proper battle for the lead. I know that the number 20 Ferrari has to make a pit stop, but Morel is entitled to fight for the place for the time being. Bartels is behind him, but while he's stuck behind the Ferrari, of course, Paolo Roberti is getting a little bit closer. Not close enough, I don't think, to challenge. It's going to need a safety car, really, to get the Porsche back up near the Ferrari. The gap did widen in that good stint by Nico Verdonk, but certainly Bartels here is stuck in traffic and he's losing time. Lost 3/10 to the chasing Porsche in the first sector. He's lost 7/10 in the second sector. And now to the inside goes number 1, and that gives the car the overall race lead. So even though Franck Morel was leading and had to make a pit stop, he's lost the lead on track anyway. And so with just under 51 minutes to go, through comes number 1, Michael Bartels, in the race lead. He goes through up towards turn 1. Meantime, let's go back to the pits and join Haley.
Nico, it looks like the 458 is performing well. How was it to drive out there?
Pretty hot to start with, but other than that, the car was improved incredibly. When you look at our performance compared to Monza, it's just a big step forward. And we still have to further improve, but we're up the right direction.
Thank you.
So Nico Verdonk, good stint that, because he's increased the car's lead, and he now has 50 minutes of staring at the screens, keeping everything crossed, and looking forward to a first GT win. He's gone well in Formula Le Mans, the one-make prototype series that then became a class within the Le Mans series, but this is his first proper season really of GT racing, and at a high level, going very well in this car against good opposition as well. So Michael Bartels then it is who leads the way. The new for 2011 Ferrari 458 Italia, his sister car, being driven by Paul van Splunteren, is in 9th place. Number 18 Porsche there, which is Alessandro Vanetti's car, currently in 10th place overall, chasing after van Splunteren. And the race with 49.5 minutes to go is now looking as though it is there for Vita 4-1 to take its maiden victory with the 458. And the 458s that have promised a lot but not always delivered in either the Blancpain series at Monza or in national championships. There's that one win at Alton Park, but they've had a bit of bad luck in other rounds of other championships, that's for sure. But the number 1 car looking very strong at the moment, and Bartels does not want to be stuck in traffic if he can avoid it. Flashing his lights at the 18 Porsche coming over the line. So number 20, Franck Morel, is in second on the road but falling away. And the number 9 Porsche of Paolo Roberti is a long, long way back. It was 11.8 seconds at one stage in that middle stint, but now just over the timing line has gone the second place car, and at turn 4 is Bartels. So it's a massive advantage, and it's gone up by over 2 seconds last time around. So the gap's widening between the top two. Paolo Roberti chasing on as best he can, but it's too big a gap, I think, even in 48.5 minutes of racing. Bartels, though, still being stuck in traffic. That's not going to help, but of course, ultimately, the same back markers are going to have to be negotiated by Paolo Roberti. Onto this back straight comes the race leader then, pulling out of the draft, just flashing his lights again at the number 18 Porsche. And Alessandro Benetti hopefully will give way this time. Yes, he does. What about the number 3 Aston Martin, which is also being lapped? That gets out of the way too. The car now with Pierre-Bryce Maynard at the wheel, down in 25th place after its long, long stop early on, after there was contact when Jan Claro was at the wheel. This is the view from the Aston. Porsche 18 is ahead. Great noise from the Aston, down a couple of gears into turn 13. Down 3 and a bit of tyre squeal into turn 15. Need to get a good smooth run through there to get the momentum onto this long, fast pit straight. Leaders go through then. Michael Bartels leading the way and still pulling clear, of course, from Franck Morel, who's a bit stuck in traffic now. And he's got a pit stop looming to give that car over to Jean-Luc Bobelic. 47 minutes of the race to go. They're not going to give Bobelic too much track time, I don't think, are they, there? He should get enough in to score points, but he's not going to have too much time in the car, so that it might just fall away and lose its class lead. Second in the class is Paul van Splunteren, who's a long way back, but of course it's a slightly inflated gap given that there's a pit stop still to come for number 20. There's the number 6 Lamborghini, in 11th place overall now, and in 4th in the Pro-Am Cup. It's got Duarte Felix da Costa at the wheel currently, the Portuguese driver who began in single-seater racing, Formula BMW UK was where he first saw him. And the class leader is right behind him there, Franck Morel, but he's lapping now 2 seconds a lap slower on occasions than the overall race leader. So he's losing touch relative to Michael Bartels, but he's staying in the lead of the class. But that pit stop is imminent, that's for sure. There's Bartels coming towards us, but a long, long way back is the second-placed car in terms of those that have done the mandatory 2 stops. In other words, the one that Paolo Roberti drives, the white and blue Auto Orlando Sport Porsche. Number 10 is about to have a stab at getting back into the race, having now lost 10 laps with this gearbox problem. Will it start? Can they get a gear this time? Fingers crossed. Yes. And pulls out right in front of the Aston Martin. And that, not, I'm afraid, the dumb thing. The team just saw the Aston at the last moment, but Jerome Policon was focused on trying to get the car going, wasn't really watching what was coming down the pit lane. And it's a good job that was a back marking car, which has already had its own drive-throughs anyway, because had that been a more competitive car, that would have jeopardised its overall place, I think. But Jerome Policon not being aware of what was happening around him in the pit lane and pulling out into the path of, there it is, the 88 Aston Martin Vantage that runs in GT4, with Raffaele Sangiolo doing the last stint in that car, Philippe Brodkern having done the middle stint, and to prove a point, getting up on the inside of the Ferrari that impeded him in the pit lane. And that goes to show as well that Jerome Policon has not yet got up to a proper pace. That's 38, Carlos Iacconelli in 7th spot now, coming over the line, and the Ferrari on the tail of Albert von Turn on Taxis. So Carlos Iacconelli, experienced single-seater racer, has done a very good job of getting the car into contention for a place within the top 6. It's also, of course, a battle for place within the Pro Cup. But bearing in mind that midway through yesterday, all was doom and gloom for Scuderia Vittorio with this software issue they had affecting the ECU. They didn't really know whether the car would be in the race. The team was here until 4 a.m. this morning working hard on that. They've just about got around the problem enough. Can it hang on in there for another 44 minutes? Can it get past the Lamborghini in bag 6 spot? They're together now, climbing uphill. Number 7 Lamborghini, another delayed car, way down in 26th place now. Dennis Volmar at the wheel, Olivier Tielemans having brought it in many laps ago with its troubles. As towards us comes Albert von Turn on Taxis, flashing his lights at the back markers there. Behind him is Carlos Iacconelli, who should really be able to find a way by. Iacconelli, who's a proper single-seater racer, knows what he's doing in any type of racing car, and should be able to go storming by, I would have thought. But for now, Von Turn on Taxis is doing a good job of hanging onto the places. In comes Franck Morel, and there is the tubbier frame of Jean-Luc Bobelic, who will clamber on board. And as you can see from the clock, Jean-Luc has just over 43 minutes of the race to go, so a very short stint for him, just to bring the car home, score points and try and hang on to a class lead. So the belts are done up, the fuel goes in, tyres will be put onto that car as well, and Paul van Splunteren, who is really now the opposition in the class, has just done the car's best lap of the race. This is the number 2 Ferrari that will be, when 20 rejoins, be chasing for the class lead, and Van Splunteren really doing a manful job now. As I say, he's bringing the gap down, he's lapping quicker than the car has done in the previous 2 stints of the race, so looking very promising indeed now. We may, in the very last minutes of this last stint, have a genuine battle for the class lead building up. There it is, in fact, it's going to be even sooner than that. Here comes Van Splunteren now, coming up towards the line, so he's going to get himself back onto the same lap as the number 20 car, which has done 74 laps and will do 75 when it leaves the pits. Over the line goes Van Splunteren, who has now done 74 laps, so he's on the same lap as this car. So you can see the gap he's got to make up, because Van Splunteren has just been through, but there, still in the pit lane, is number 20. Van Splunteren lapping quicker than the car has done hitherto, and number 20 gets away now. So what's that going to be? 3/4 of a lap lead, but Van Splunteren is quicker than Jean-Luc Bobelic, so that gap's going to come down, but can it come down enough before the very end of the race? Race order then, number 1, Michael Bartels leading there, the blue and white Porsche going through the shot, Paolo Roberti. Gap still creeping up between the 2 of them. In 3rd place there is number 32, Felipe Albuquerque, who's ahead of Greg Franchi now, so the Audis have switched around, and Albuquerque is doing similar lap times to Roberti, only about a 10th shy, so that means he's not really being able to bring down the gap. 4th is Greg Franchi, 5th now is going to be Albert von Thurn on Taxis. In 6th place, Carlos Iaconelli. And there is a very hot and tired Franck Morel. Great middle stint of the race, that, in the number 20 Ferrari. Done a very, very good job, and he's deserved that bottle of water. Glug, glug, glug. Franck Morel hands the car over to Jean-Luc Bobelic, leading its class. Question is, can it hang on in there? So certainly this second round of the Blancpain Endurance Series has been far more of a car breaker. We've had greater attrition and more accidents as well than we had at Monza. We've also got some great battles, and here's another one, side by side, diving through the middle. Great move by Carlos Iaconelli then to take the place away from Albert von Thurn on Taxis. The slower GT4 Aston got in the way of the Lamborghinis you saw, but diving through the gap was Iaconelli, and so he's done it, he's gone through. Carlos Iaconelli then takes the place away from Albert von Thurn on Taxis, who, knowing him, is going to try and fight back if he can. He doesn't like being overtaken, doesn't the German Prince. He'll fight back on this run now down towards turn 9 if he can, but Carlos Iaconelli has gone through. Then he's taken the place away from the white Lamborghini Gallardo behind him, but the gap does come down under braking, so I don't think this fight is over yet. The Blancpain back Lambo right on the back of the Ferrari. Heading up now towards turn 12 through that tight left-hander. So Iaconelli has gained that place. Can he shake off Albert von Thurn on Taxis, who runs wide over the curb, kicks up the dirt just a little bit? Behind the two of them as well is the number 4 Aston Martin of Fred Makovici. And Fred is always fast, but this is not really an Aston Martin circuit. The Astons haven't looked terribly strong all weekend. It's just a bit too point and squirt. I think they need long, fast, flowing circuits. And it's not an Aston track. Well, it has been a Franck Morel track, has it? A superb job done in that middle stint. So let's hear from him.
Frank, it looks like you're really enjoying yourself. How was your stint?
Okay, yes, it's a really great satisfaction to me, first of all, to Jean-Luc and Ludo, and second one to the team of Jérôme Poliquin, because I think the new Ferrari 458, it's a good car, but it's very young. So in the race in Monza, we got a lot of problems. Not only our team, but the other one. And so Fred SP works hard to find solution, and to Navarra, maybe in the classification program, I hope it's very good if it's first place, but if it's a podium, it's a great result to the team.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Well, the question is, can the car hang on for this class lead, the potential class win? It's going pretty well at the moment, so the race with 38 3/4 minutes to go may be looking a bit more resolved up front, because Bartels is still pulling clear of Roberti. The gap was 15 seconds, it's now up to 17 seconds, because Paolo Roberti's next lap is a slower one. So the gap widens by the better part of 2 seconds there. Albuquerque third, and therefore closing on the Porsche. If anything's going to change within the podium places, I reckon it's going to be second more than the race lead now. But then, of course, there's this intriguing situation about the lead of the Pro-Am Cup, with number 20 in 5th place, Jean-Luc Bobelic, having just gone through. He's lapping in the 142s. Paul van Splintrum is lapping quicker, but he's also got to work his way past quite a bit of traffic, so it's been a mighty advantage built up. And of course, don't forget, number 2 has had an extra pit stop, because Louis Machiels only did 1 lap before coming back in for a problem to be sorted out after he'd taken over from Nick Homerson, and it had a drive-through penalty as well. So it's not been a great race for number 2, but there it is, still second within the Pro-Am Cup standings, behind number 20, the car of Franck Morel, just heard from Franck. Third in the class, number 18, which is the Porsche now in the hands of the man that prepares it, Gianluca De Lorenzi. And then fourth is Duarte Felix da Costa in the number 6 Lamborghini, the surviving healthy one of the 2 that started the orange Lamborghinis, backed by the Rhinos energy drink. So there's number 2, Paul van Splintrum, 9th place overall, and lapping quicker by nearly 2 seconds, in fact, than Jean-Luc Bobelic. So Jean-Luc is doing laps in the 142s. He's being caught by Carlos Iaconelli and by Albert von Thurn on Taxis and by Fred Makovici, and crucially by his class opposition, Paul van Splintrum. So there it is. It is 62 seconds, first to second, but it is coming down. Whether it will come down quickly enough remains to be seen, but Jean-Luc Bobelic isn't as rapid a driver as van Splintrum, that's for sure. So 62 seconds and falling in the Pro-Am Cup. Keep an eye to that as each lap unfolds. Van Splintrum doing a good job in this car and in the groove straight away. Car number 40 is also starting to speed up now with Maxime Martin at the wheel in this last stint, because it's just done its best first sector of the race. Many laps down is the Ford GT, but looking quick. Van Splundtrum in this superb looking 458, and there's just something about that livery that Michael Bartels uses on the cars, the colours of Vitaphone, but now being adopted by Vita 41, the new team. It just makes any car look good, whether it was the Celine that he and Uwe Altensen originally raced in the FIA GT Championship, and then he was joined for a season by Timo Scheider. He ran it on the Maseratis with great success and carried the colours initially, of course, in the DTM, but whatever race car it looks good on, it doesn't seem to matter what the base car is. It's a great livery, and the 458 in itself is a superb looking car. Over the line goes Van Splundtrum then in 9th overall. That lap is a 41.4, and Jean-Luc Bobelic is lapping in the 44.6 mark. So that's 3 seconds taken out alone. So it's coming down, 62 to 59 seconds, and 35 minutes to go. It'll be fascinating to see whether it actually happens, this, but certainly Jean-Luc Bobelic's car doesn't have quite the same speed. Now, look at this, because you've got Albert von Turner Taxis looking for a back ahead of Carlos Iaconelli. Down they come, side by side. Albert tries to go around on the outside. He's run out of road, hasn't he? I think he's gone straight on up the escape road onto the runoff area there. Let's see. He's got it back on, but he certainly looked as though he was heading for the outer reaches of the road. He's lost a length or two. Tries to claw it back under braking. Not quite able to do that. So Albert von Turner Taxis, with this never say die spirit that he has, trying to get back onto terms with Carlos Iaconelli, the very rapid young Brazilian. Good single-seater pedigree that Carlos has built up over the years, from karts, the Brazilian Formula Renault Championship, the South American F3 competition. He raced in Spanish Formula 3, in Italian Formula Renault Euro Cup, Formula Renault 3.5, Formula Master, GP2, Formula 2, you name it, just about every single-seater category bar Formula 1 he's been in, now turning his attention to GT racing. And Albert von Turner Taxis behind him, who came from the Polo Cup into the Trofeo Maserati and then into GT3 racing, hasn't got anything like the same spectrum of experience that Iaconelli has, but he's staying with him. 6th and 7th they are, and of course while they're having their own battle like this, Jean-Luc Bobelic is ahead of them, but last time Jean-Luc did a rather more comfortable lap time. It was a 1:40.9, so therefore the gap over Van Splundtrum, which is the one of relevance for their Pro-Am Cup class battle, has extended. So maybe it was just Jean-Luc Bobelic needing a couple of laps to get himself really bedded in. Now he's able to pick up the pace once again. This is the second round of the Blancpain Endurance Series. We're at the new circuit of Navarra, still in its infancy, not yet been open for 2 years here in northern Spain, not far from Bilbao, and it's given a very entertaining race. Now this is a replay of Carlos Iaconelli using the curb, getting sideways, coming onto the back straight, and that was why Albert von Turner Taxis was able to make the run heading down towards turn 9. But he was repelled by Carlos Iaconelli, and Albert von Turner Taxis is trying to make up the time once again, but now he needs another error to be forced by Iaconelli in order to get right back onto the tail of the 6th placed Ferrari. They're in traffic as well, with the Gentleman Trophy Porsche there just up the road ahead of them. That will dodge out of the way very shortly, and the race coming towards its last 30 minutes now, as Michael Bartels has backed off the pace in that last lap. He's done a 1:42.1, and Roberti is lapping in the 1:40, so the lead gap has just slightly come down. Let's hear from Hans Reiter, though, the man behind the Lamborghini project. He's in the pit lane with Haley.
Hans, unfortunately, it's been a bit of a bittersweet race. Albert's doing great out there, but unfortunately 24 hasn't quite made it.
No, it was bad luck with 24. We had an engine blow up in the warmer and the qualifying. The team managed to change engine in 1.5 hours, which was a really fantastic job. And then the alternator failed. It looks like we installed a new alternator which isn't working. No, pity. And on the other car, currently it's going okay. We are in 7th position, but really in the pace car period we came in too early and we lost a complete lap on the pace car. So it's not really a fantastic lap race for us.
Thank you, Hans.
Well, there's Albert von Turner Taxis trying to make up for that lost time under the safety car pit stop, and he's threading his way past the GT4 Lotus Evora. Very pretty car, that. And number 70 is now with Greg Mansell at the wheel, a comfortable class leader with a lap in hand over the sister car, number 61, which has now got Rolf Maritz at the wheel. There's the charging Fred Makovici. Now, Fred Mako is 8th overall, and he's closing on von Turner Taxis, so the battle for 7th, of course, is the next one to look for. And you can see the way the gap is coming down and down and down. There's the Lamborghini then. the German prince at the wheel, and there's the silver Aston Martin getting closer all the time. Iaconelli 6th, Vontono Taxis 7th, and Fred Makovici in 8th place as the cars turn their way up towards the completion of what for them is lap number 81. Now, Michael Bartels had a rogue lap. I think I told you that he'd gone slower and Roberti was quicker. Well, that I think was just traffic, because now Michael is back into the 1 minute 40s once again, and he's pulled away from Paolo Roberti. So occasionally, when traffic allows, there's a bit of optimism for Autolando Sport, because the Porsche can close on the Ferrari, but it's not a regular pattern. Meantime, 6th, 7th, 8th come over the line, and Carlos Iaconelli is quicker than Vontono Taxis, who by 3,000ths that time was quicker than Fred Makovici. So there's nothing really changing for yet within that little battle, but I reckon Mako is going to be able to get onto the back of the Lamborghini before much longer. Now he can see the car ahead, that's going to fire him up even more. There is Fred Makovici, the Hexis AMR driver, Hexis energy drink, backing the two-car team. Henri Moser having started the car, Gilles Vannelet having done the middle stint, but it's always Fred that you can rely on to do the best lap times in the Aston. And behind him in 9th place, Paul van Splunteren doing another personal best within the first sector, lapping in the 140s, and Bobelik in the 142s last time. So there's no real pattern about Jean-Luc Bobelik's laps. Some are good, some rather less so. And we might yet get a bit of shuffling before the very end, because of course he's being caught by Carlos Iaconelli in number 38. Jean-Luc Bobelik has just gone across the timing line, and on that last lap through, Felipe Albuquerque just a little bit quicker than Paolo Roberti. Fred Mako then still chasing on in pursuit of Albert Vontono Taxis. But I think Jean-Luc Bobelik is going to be secure, because the gap that he has built, not just for his Class lead but also for 5th place, is a mighty one, and it's going to take an awful lot of effort on the part of the opposition to bring that gap down. Makovici then comes across the line. Bobelik last time did a lap in the 141s. Iaconelli is quicker than him, so is Vontono Taxis, and Fred Makovici quicker than the two ahead of him. So this time around he does start to rise to the occasion, only by a few tenths, but the gap does come down a little bit. Makovici out of turn 3 now in the number 4 Aston Martin. Makes the run downhill, speed building all the time. And as the race has worn on, so the temperature has picked up here at the Navarra circuit, because the original fear that there might be a bit of rain to come has long since been dispelled. The cloud has broken, and the temperature is much, much hotter than we had. Certainly it feels that way than at the start of the race. So there's Fred Makovici, 8th spot, catching Vontono Taxis as they dive through turn 8, and with just under half an hour to go, surely Fred Makovici is going to gain 1 place before the end here. Whether he's going to be able to get past Carlos Iaconelli, I'm not sure, because Carlos is, as we have seen, a real fighter. And Makovici creeping up now onto the tail of the white Lamborghini ahead of him. Down towards turn 12, Fred Makovici it is then. Still looking to see where he's going to be perfectly placed, but he runs a bit wide in fact there, so he can't really think just yet about making that move. He's got to just claw back a length again, which he's lost by running wide. Experienced and very quick, whether it's in a GT1 or a GT3 car these days, is Fred Makovici. There is the man that is in 6th spot now, Carlos Iaconelli. Matteo Bobbi having done the middle stint, Giacomo Petrovelli having started, and as the car powers its way up over the line, Iaconelli comes through. Still looking strong in that car. So those 2 early safety car periods helping some teams, affecting others. They've certainly, though, shaped the race, that is for sure. And disappointing that we've got 2 pretty damaged cars. As Makovici runs wide there at turn 3, carried too much speed into the corner, runs towards the curb, and that's just going to give a little bit more breathing space back to Vontono Taxis as they drop downhill now. Climbing uphill through turn 6 and 7, and again Makovici goes a little bit too wide through the corner there. You can see that he's certainly pushing on, but that's a couple of errors almost in successive corners here. Albert Vontono Taxis then does have a little bit of a cushion, if only for a lap or 2. Race leader Michael Bartels has now done 85 laps and 27 minutes remain. He's done a lap in the 140s, so just crossing the line now has Paolo Roberti. but only by a tenth is he any quicker. So there's nothing really to choose between those two. The gap isn't coming down anything like what it should do. Third, also in a bit of a stalemate situation, is Felipe Albuquerque, but it's the real battle that's going on here for 6th, 7th and 8th, which is the one of interest. Makovici quicker last time than Vontono Taxis, who was closed on Iaconelli because he in turn is stuck there behind the number 31 Lamborghini, which gets out of the way now. Fabien Michal at the wheel, the car started by Georges Capin. And remember, they are interested in winning the Gentleman Trophy. The car gets out of everybody's way, and so the quicker drivers go by. And having won at Monza, leading here as well is 31. So that Lamborghini, Georges Capin and Fabien Michal leading within the Gentleman Trophy, going extremely well as the 6th place Ferrari, now released from the traffic, is able to pull away once more from the Lamborghini. But in terms of lap times, the quickest of the three is Fred Makovici. And again, look, on this run past the pits where the Aston can stretch its legs, it's on the tail of the Lamborghini, and there are all sorts of distractions for the Vita41 team now. Mind on the job, chaps. Right, the leading car of Michael Bartels leads the way by a monster margin, really, over Paolo Roberti. The sister car is 9th and still chipping away, trying to catch Jean-Luc Bobelic for a class lead, but the gap ain't coming down fast enough. Jean-Luc Bobelic last time did a 1:41. Van Splunteren has just crossed the line and done a 40.5, so he is closing, but he's not going to get there, I fear, in 25.5 minutes, unless the race has a real sting in the tail and somebody goes off and necessitates a safety car. But I think maybe we've had our damage quota. Interesting that yesterday, during the practice and pre-qualifying sessions, the incidents were really happening on the first part of the lap, or either at the turn 1, 2 and 3 sequence, or for the Porsche that went off spectacularly of Stefano Bianconi coming out of that corner, turn 10, whereas today it's all been happening with the damage at turn 15. Two very damaged Ferraris, a 430 and a 458, a legacy of drivers getting 14 wrong and then having their accidents coming up to turn 15. Lotus getting out of the way here, Rolf Maritz with a long history of racing sports cars, keeping out of the way, and Iaconelli has gone past, and a sideways Makovici now wriggles by as well. Vontono Taxis have gone by as well. Makovici knows that you can't afford to hesitate for a tenth of a second, otherwise they'll be gone. And look at the way that Vontono Taxis is once again coming back at the Ferrari. The Scuderia Vittoria car then in the hands of Carlos Iaconelli comes over the line. The gap has come down once more between them, so that time by half a second Vontono Taxis is quicker, and the Gentleman Trophy leading Lamborghini of Fabien Michal, we've just seen it being lapped, that has come into the pit lane. Also into the pits has come Pierre Bryce Mena in the sister Aston Martin to Fred Makovici's car, which is there right on the back of Vontono Taxis. And these three now for for 6th place I should say, absolutely together. Iaconelli, Vontono Taxis, and then Makovici on his tail. And Vontono Taxis is the man with the hardest task of all. He's trying to attack and defend at the same time. New boots go onto the 31 Lamborghini, which is well clear within its class. The Gentleman Trophy leading car, Fabien Michal sharing with Georges Capin, and second in that class is the 37 Giorgio Piodi, Stefano Bianconi, Stefano Villa Porsche. There it is, in fact, coming towards us at the head of that queue, with Iaconelli, Vontono Taxis and Makovici still disputing 6th place. The race has 23 minutes to go, and the gap is widening once again up front between Bartels and Roberti, but last time around Felipe Albuquerque was a little bit quicker than was the Porsche. Gap coming down then just slightly, 2nd to 3rd. There's Stefano Villa keeping out of the way in the number 37 Porsche, which is set for 2nd, and disappointingly last also, because we lost the number 22 Philippe Scherer Ferrari early on in the Gentleman Trophy. Fabien Michal rejoins, and there is the Vontono Taxis Lamborghini, still on the back of Carlos Iaconelli, and still with its mirrors full of Fred Makovici, who hauls right up to the tail there, diving into turn 15. Over the line they come, up towards turns 1, 2 and 3. The other great element about this battle is that you've got 3 different brands so evenly matched. Ferrari, Lamborghini, Aston Martin, all with their different strengths at different points of the circuit, different weaknesses too, but it all works out to be an incredibly close fight. And Iaconelli then can't get away from Vontono Taxis, who can't get away from Makovici. The 3 of them still glued together, heading downhill again now through turn 4. Down towards that race control building, swinging their way through the left-hander, climbing uphill a little bit. And then this tricky sequence, turn 6 and 7, get the power down too early and you wash out wide over the curve, over the grass. Race with 22 minutes still to run, and the battle is on for second place. It is coming down and down between Paolo Roberti and Felipe Albuquerque, who has just gone across the line and he's lapping quicker again, so he's taken another 9/10 out of the advantage of Paolo Roberti. Second and third could yet change before the end. Michael Bartels is doing a very good job consistently lapping in the 140s for the race lead, but there you can see how it's panning out between second and third. Porsche versus Audi. Number 32, Felipe Albuquerque, who was the runner-up to Paolo Roberti's Porsche at Monza. He's chasing after him again now. It's not for a win, it's for second place. But the real tantalising thing up front here for Albuquerque is that he can see the Porsche, and that's going to motivate him even more. Last time around, Roberti lapped in the 141s. A low 141, admittedly, but a low 140 was the lap time for Felipe Albuquerque, and so it's going to come down and down this gap. With 21 minutes to go, we could yet have a change for second place. There are the two cars involved in the fight. Paolo Roberti heading towards us, former Formula 3 racer, had a spell in the European Touring Car Championship driving Alfa Romeos, had a spell in the FIA GT Championship in a Saleen, and a double runner-up within the LMGT2 class in the 24 Hours of Le Mans, winner of the opening round of this championship, but now being caught by the Audi of Felipe Albuquerque for second place overall, as Makovici has fallen back a bit from Alba Montana Taxis this time. 7th and 8th, the Lamborghini ahead of the Aston Martin as they drop downhill. Makovici hustling on, but you can see how the Aston is better at certain points of the circuit, and the long, fast pit straight is one of them, and just by the end of it, really, he's got all the speed he wants, which then has to be scrubbed off as he brakes and changes down and turns through 1, 2 and 3, that very tricky sequence right at the start of the lap. Race leaders then on lap 90 with 20 minutes of the race to go. And the number 4 Aston Martin, which is as close as it's ever been really to the back of the Lamborghini, but still unable to find a way past. Roberti working his way through the traffic. Felipe Albuquerque will be diving past that slower Porsche as well before much longer as they head downhill again. So Felipe Albuquerque, winner of the Race of Champions last year, good pedigree as a single-seater racer, hustling on behind Paolo Roberti. The gap continues to come down. And Felipe, who's raced in the Superstars series, he drove, in fact, in the Italian GT Championship 2 years ago in an Audi R8, so he knows the cars well. And into the pit lane has just come Carlos Iacconelli. So out of that battle for 6th place, in he comes, and I think Matteo Bobbi is going to have a final stint behind the wheel of the car. So there is the last stop with just 19 minutes to go. One out, one in. And there Fred Makovici then gains a place. So Albert Montana Taxis goes up into 6th. And yet Matteo Bobbi being strapped in. So he gets the last few laps behind the wheel. Former FIA GT champion. And the engine fires up. Or does it? Yes, it does now. Blimey. Doesn't do much for that set of tyres. They kept it on the original rubber anyway, but he's just taken another half an inch off them as he floors the throttle. Hopefully that's not infringed the pit lane speed limit, but a very fired up Matteo Bobbi then back into the race. So he rejoins. 18 minutes he has behind the wheel, but because of that extra stop, he's going to lose touch with the fight for 6th place. Now you're going to have Alba Montana Taxis and Fred Makovici well clear. Here's the fight for 2nd. The gap was down again last time by over half a second between Roberti and Albuquerque with 18 minutes to go. Michael Bartels still looking good up front, heading for a victory it seems as the battle goes on for 2nd place. Porsche versus Audi, and just gradually the gap is coming down and down and down and down between the two of them. Albuquerque looking as though 2nd is going to be his. The car having led early on, losing out really because of the 2nd safety car period, and Bert Langevin doing some slower laps also in his stint as the temperatures fluctuated, and Paolo Roberti now feeling the pressure a little bit as Felipe Albuquerque starts to fill his mirrors. Behind them 4th is the 2nd Audi of Greg Franchi. In 5th place, Jean-Luc Bobelic, still being caught by the Vontono Taxis and Makovici fight, but again not being caught enough for that to be a drama before the end. The race leader, Michael Bartels, then on lap number 91, and here is the fight for 2nd place getting ever more intense. The leader is on the pit straight. They're coming out of turn 13. That shows you what gap Bartels has built up over the last few laps, taking over the good work done by, in the first stint, Frank Heckler, then by Nico Verdonk, and so Vita 4-1 which is not a team that is used to losing. Had that disappointment with the starter motor failure at Monza, and looks as though it's going to score victory at Navarra. Over the timing line goes the fight for second place. The gap, nothing at all between them now. Another 8/10 pull back that time by Felipe Albuquerque. So the Porsche just heads the Audi, but for how much longer? Where is the Portuguese driver going to find a way past the Italian? Wide into turn 3, looks to try and duck up the inside. Can't do it though there. Head downhill. Looks to the outside, wrong place. Wants the inside line for the next corner. Roberti using all of the road and the curb. Absolutely on the limit now, but the Porsche doesn't have the pace of the Audi. He goes a little bit wide coming out of turn 5 there. As to the outside goes Felipe Albuquerque. Everywhere there's a gap, he's trying, even if it's not the right line. He just wants to try and force an error out of Paolo Roberti. The short run now towards turn 8. Roberti sets the car up for the right-hander. Now onto the straight. This battle for second place becoming ever more intense. 16 minutes of the race to go. Slower car ahead. It's the GT4 spec Aston Martin Vantage, which is going to just temporarily, I suspect, impede Albuquerque. Not by much, but because of the way they had to turn into the corner. I think Felipe would have just been a little bit more careful getting past there, but he's right back on the tail of the Porsche now, coming through turn 11. Short straight to 12. Car number 70 is in the pit lane, which is the Greg Mansell GT4 class leading Lotus. So there it is in its garage. Remember, it was a lap up on the opposition. A class win was there for the taking. Are we now going to have a different situation? We are, because the 61 Lotus is through into the lead of the class now with Rolf Maritz at the wheel. So there it is, the Lorenz Fry, Rolf Maritz and Freddie Barth Lotus as behind, side by side for second. Through comes Roberti, but Felipe Albuquerque is about to take the place on the inside line, going up to turn 1. Through he goes. Roberti slots back in behind him. Can he make a move going up towards turn 2? They're both stuck there behind the slower car that gets out of the way. Rolf Maritz moves to one side of the road then, nose to tail. Albuquerque then just with Roberti on his tail, but I think now that he's ahead, the Audi should be able to pull away here. That gap should build as they drop downhill once again. Felipe Albuquerque up into second spot. Yeah, the gap is building. 2 corners after he's gained the place, so daylight is evident between the 2 cars. The gap widens as they climb uphill. 14.5 minutes to go. So after a stellar race at Monza, the Porsche here, not the most common of cars numerically really within the Pro Cup class, struggling a little bit. Roberti almost runs out of road there, heads towards the curb as they come onto that back straight. Another Porsche ahead, this time it's 37, and with his lights flashing. So Felipe Albuquerque able to get past the Stefano Villa car. Albuquerque then second, but I don't think he can do much about the race leader. The lap times of Mikael Bartels suggesting now that he's not going to be caught from there. 14 more minutes to go. And down the order, we've had Fred Makovici move himself ahead of Albert Vontonen Taxis, so that puts Fred Makovici into 6th place, and he's catching as well Jean-Luc Bobelic. So that gap's coming down between those 2 also, as there is 61 now, the GT4 leading car. Rolf Maritz, Lorenz Fry, and the 3rd driver of that car, Freddie Barth, having qualified it on pole position within GT4. So very disappointing for the Mansells. And let's catch up with exactly what the problems are for the number 70, because Haley has news from the pit lane.
Leo, unfortunately, number 70 is sat in the garage. Can you explain what's going on with the Lotus?
Couldn't get any gears. Something wrong with the gearbox. I think it's the compressor. We're not entirely sure right now. So just hopefully get back on track so we can finish and get some points.
Is it likely you will be able to get the car back out there?
I don't know right now. We'll find out in a minute.
Thank you.
So very disappointing. The car leading by a lap and now losing lap after lap as it sits in the garage. So as I say, Lotus 61 takes over the class lead. And at the end of the next lap, number 63 Nissan of Chris Ward will be up into 2nd in GT4. Well, there's the class leading Lotus. And so it was the type of car that was victorious at Monza, but there it was Piscopo and the Mansells that came out on top. And 2nd within GT4 was the car, but with different drivers, because 61 Lotus at Monza had Landman, Schaber Walter and Florian Eichinger at the wheel, whereas Fry, Maritz and Barth were all driving the Gentle Swiss Racing Aston Martin, but en masse they have made a jump into a different car for this weekend. Looks like it's going to be the right move, doesn't it, because they're on target now for a class win. Albert Vontonen Taxis 7th, flashing his lights, and Fred Makovici, having moved himself up into the top 6 a couple of laps ago, is pulling away. It's Chris Ward, in fact, in the Nissan. I was just talking about that car now, second in GT4, that is being ushered out of the way by the charging Lamborghini. And Chris, as a good racing instructor does, keeps well out of the way, lets the faster car go by. So there is Fred Makovici, having worked his way up into the top 6. And as I say, he's closing on Jean-Luc Bobelic, but I don't think he's going to get there in time, because the gap that exists between the number 20 Ferrari and the number 4 Aston Martin is a whopping one. Matteo Bobbi back at the wheel now of number 38. He's down in 9th place. So the 38 Ferrari trying to play catch-up, but I don't think it's going to do a huge amount more from there after that late pit stop. For Vita 4-1, however, it is looking very good indeed. There's the leading car, and not only does it lead outright, of course, it leads the Pro Cup. Michael Bartels, Nico Verdonk, and the man that did the opening stint, Frank Kekler, all working very well with this car. The team manager of the Ford GT, Maxime Martin, at the wheel of it, being summoned to the race director. The car down in 14th place, but there's been a contravention somewhere, so the race director wants a word. Michael Bartels, meantime, having a relatively easy time here. In fact, all he has to do is just keep out of trouble. His last lap was a slightly slower one, but he's got a big lead nonetheless over Felipe Albuquerque in second spot in the number 32 Audi, who in turn is pulling away from Paolo Roberti, who is not yet being caught by Greg Franchi. So the leading 4 looking as though they've stabilised for now. Bartels puts the headlights on to warn Fabian Michal of his progress, because the Gentleman Trophy class leader, 15th overall, needs to hop out of the way of the leading Ferrari. Turning now up out of turn 2, well out of the way, goes Fabian Michel. That's very gentlemanly. Don't just let him by, just drive off the road to give him plenty of room. So Fabian Michel is overtaken, is lapped, and that car now is 6 laps down on the race leader. Shows you the different pace between gentlemen racers and 3 pro drivers all in the one car. So Bartels, 10 minutes to go in this second round of the Blancpain Endurance Series, is looking set for a race win, and he was very confident pre-race that fuel was not going to be an issue here. They could comfortably do an hour, and so on that evidence, taking him at his word, I doubt that we're going to need to see that car back in for fuel. Heading up the pit lane again and back into the race is going Greg Mansell's Lotus. So as Leo, his brother, was suggesting, they can get back out, the aim being to try and score some points. Frank Kekler, Nico Verdonk watching to the end of the race, watching the screens. I think they're watching the screens rather than anything else in the garage. And with now 9 minutes remaining, it's looking good, isn't it, for the player manager, really, Michael Bartels, whose team it is, who drives the car very, very quickly, and the German driver who has been a very vocal supporter and critic in equal measure of GT racing in recent years, does exactly what his sponsors want, runs a very tight ship, and comes out of turn 15 heading up towards the line. Slightly intimidating persona about Michael until you start to probe away, but he's a pretty jolly chap underneath with this steely exterior. Loves his racing, loves winning, and for sure looks like there's another victory heading his way here. First time he's been able to add a GT3 victory to his long tally of GT wins. Felipe Albuquerque looks like it's going to be another second place in a row, however, having been second at Monza, and the Monza winning Porsche, there it is in third and falling away, Paolo Roberti. Greg Franchi, though, in 4th place, number 33, doing slower laps. He did a 1:43 last time. So as we get into the last 8 minutes or so of the race now, 1 or 2 cars starting to have a slower pace than you might have expected, unlike Matteo Bobbi, who is now the fastest man on the circuit in the number 38 Scuderia Vittoria Ferrari, absolutely flying. A flash of the headlights there from the Sofrev Ferrari, number 10. Way down the order. 18th is Jerome Policon, having lost 10 laps with that gearbox problem that kept him in the garage. And ahead of him is Duarte Felix da Costa, 10th with the Lamborghini, and looking strong, that car, within the Pro-Am Cup. Doesn't make life easy for Policon to find a way past him. It's not a battle for position, this, because they are many laps apart, but Jerome Policon, frustrated that he wasn't able to carry on the good work of Patrice Goillard, does in the end find a way past the bewinged Lamborghini, climbs uphill and heads now to turn 8. Duarte Felix da Costa and the Lamborghini 3rd in the Pro-Am Trophy, as Michael Bartels then ticks off the laps. Felipe Albuquerque last time was quicker than the leading car, but not significantly so in order to suggest that Bartels has a problem. And then Michael's next lap is back to a proper pace once again. So all you need to do is find one back marker in the way and it affects your lap time, that's for certain. And Bartels now just using a bit of the curve out of turn 2. Looks as though a win is heading his way. Second, Felipe Albuquerque comes over the line now as Bartels goes into turn 4. So that's the margin between the two leading cars. The third is the Paolo Roberti driven Porsche. And then in fourth place, Greg Franchi, who last time did a 42. The lap before that he did a 1:43. So is he just being very consistent, or are things starting to go wrong for the Audi? Let's just keep an eye to its next lap. It's coming over the timing line now. You're looking at 32, which is the second place car of Felipe Albuquerque, looking good for another podium finish, another second place in a row. Over the line has gone Franchi. Fourth place, it's another lap in the 1:42, so they're okay, if not stellar. Fifth is Jean-Luc Bobelic's number 20 Ferrari, and in sixth place is number 4, which is the Fred Makovici Aston Martin. And Fred is still closing on Bobelic, but I think he's got too much to make up before the very end. So Paolo Roberti, they're in third place in the Porsche. As far as the GT3 class is concerned, it's going to be very close indeed going to Spa. If you think that this car will have had a win and a third, and the Audi will have had 2 seconds, it'll be building up nicely. The Italian Auto Orlando Sport team, winners on home soil, set for third in Spain. It's the German Vita 4-1 team leading the way, with the Belgian WRT, Belgian Audi Club Run Audi R8 second and fourth. This is the fourth place car, Greg Franchi then. The Belgian driver having taken over from Marcel Fassler, who in turn took over from Andrea Piccini after Andrea pitted early, thinking there was about to be a safety car, which never turned out to be the case. We got one a bit later, but not when he was anticipating it. And the car, I think, to recover from all that, having lost a lap early on to finish in fourth place, helped by the next safety car, admittedly, is no mean result. There, heading the Pro-Am Cup, is Jean-Luc Bobelic, who is coming up towards the end of the lap, still being chased by Fred Makovici, but Fred, quicker last time by a second and a half, has now got himself caught up in traffic. So Jean-Luc is not only looking secure again in fifth overall, but also looking ever more secure for the class win, because Paul van Splunteren is not really able to make up much of that three-quarter of a lap deficit that was what he had to do when he started his stint. Just over 4 minutes to go. We're looking at 3 laps, I would imagine, if that now, for the race-leading car. Michael Bartels' Ferrari 458, set for a first victory in Vita 4-1's hands, the 458. He's been a winner with other teams and other championships. There's Fred Makovici still storming on. Goes over the line, and in 6th overall, 5th in the Pro Cup. Turns now through turn 1. Makovici with a lap time of a 1:42.5 because of having to get past a back marker or 2. That means that he's lost time to Jean-Luc Bobelic on that most recent lap, but it's a clear road ahead of him, certainly for the immediate few corners. So now he can start to up his pace once again. And Fred Makovici, one of those drivers that has basically one way of driving, and it's flat out. You see him just lock up slightly there as he goes in towards turn 6, climbs uphill, doing his level best to get the car back into contention. It was way down the order earlier on after Henri Moser and Gilles Vannelay's earlier stints. It had a drive-through as well when Vanelay was behind the wheel, so more time was lost earlier. Take some of that out of the equation from the drive-through, and I think it would be a lot closer to Bobelic and challenging for 5th place. 3 minutes to go, and there's the leader, Michael Bartels, wriggling his way past the Lotus. Greg Mansell back at the wheel of it for the last few laps, and the car 3rd in GT4, so it will get some points, but not as many as it should have had. Cruel Racing, a lap lead, as into the pit lane comes Greg Franchi. Now, I was suggesting that the car was getting slower, and he has come down the pit lane out of 4th place there. Number 33 Audi has just come into the pits now, keeping an eye, there it is, to what they're doing, and it looks like it's tyres. Slow puncture maybe, car not handling right, up on the jacks, dropped down again. All is good, say the team, send him back into the race. So they've jacked it up and had a look, but they've done no more than that. Sent Greg Franchi back into the race, but is he going to be able to hang on to 4th place? Goes through now. So Greg Franchi in the number 33 Audi, a late race stop, clearly not happy with the feel of the car. gone back into the race, but that will have cost him time, and not that far behind now. He's going to be Von Turn on taxis there, so he has lost ground as a consequence of that. As over the line goes Michael Bartels. We've got 2 minutes to go this lap and one more, so 2 more to go for Bartels, number 1. Making a change this year from the GT1 World Championship, because the Maserati MC12 that he's been running needed 2 teams. Bartels had the funding for his 2-car effort, but there wasn't another team with the finance available to run the second team, and the regulations say that a car can be in if run by 2 separate squads, and it didn't happen this year, so Vitaphone Racing had to call time on the Maserati MC12 project, a car that has really done Michael Bartels' team proud over recent years, and instead it's turned its attention to the Blancpain Endurance Series, and successfully so, it seems. A lap and a half away from a win. There, second is Felipe Albuquerque in the 32 Audi. A little bit slower last time. You can see the gap. It's the best part of half a lap, really, between the top 2 now. But it's going to be a second of the season for Felipe Albuquerque, who comes through turn 8 now. In 3rd place, the winning car from Monza, the Porsche of Paolo Roberti. So the 2nd placed Audi at the end of the back straight. Paolo Roberti is behind. You can see what that gap is. It's effectively the length of the straight between 2nd and 3rd places. And the Scuderia Vittoria 4, 5, 8 is next. 9th now, Matteo Bobbi back behind the wheel after that last pit stop, a late race pit stop to put him on board the car. Greg Franchi has just gone over the timing line. He held on to his 4th place despite the pit stop, and so Michael Bartels comes through. He's going to squeeze 1 more lap out of the race as the number 1 Ferrari goes over the timing line. So for the Vita 4-1 team, Nico Verdonk and the man that started, Frank Kekler, who did a great opening stint, Michael Bartels is going to bring the car home. There are the mechanics making their way out onto the pit wall. It's going to be 1st and 8th, but also it's going to be a Pro Cup win, and as far as the 2nd car is concerned, 2nd in the Pro Am Cup. Not a bad day's work for the Vita 4-1 team. Number 1, after a starter motor problem, stopped it in its tracks at Monza, having its first finish of the year. Number 2 at least did finish the race in Italy, 13th overall, and the car came home way down in its class, but at least it was a finisher. But here it's going to be an outright win, seemingly, for the number 1 Ferrari. Half a lap to go now for Michael Bartels. And already starting to celebrate there, Frank Kekler and Nico Verdonk, the young German driver Frank Kekler, the Belgian driver Nico Verdonk, who not only are quick drivers in their own right, but I think it's fair to say they're probably learning a lot from the old master, Michael Bartels, here, being something of a father figure to the 2 young chargers, and it's probably very good for their career development as well, being put into a team like this with Michael, with his eye for detail as a team manager and with his ability as a driver. So he comes now up towards the last couple of corners, and this is going to be the end of 102 laps of racing. 1 corner to go at the Circuito de Navarra for the 2nd round of the Blancpain Endurance Series. The 4th placed Audi gets out of the way, so it avoids doing another lap. Greg Franchi goes a lap down, but saves himself a lap of fuel in so doing. Up then towards the checkered flag. It is a win for Vita 4-1, for Ferrari, and for Michael Bartels, who takes the checkered flag along with Frank Kekler and Nico Verdonk, who are very happy indeed. Understandably so. The celebrations have started on the pit wall, and it's the first victory by name for Vita 4-1, the team that's come out of Vitaphone Racing. 2nd over the line there is the Audi of Stefano Ortelli, Bert Langin and Felipe Albuquerque, a car that led in the early stages of the race, and coming over the line, you can see it in the background now for 3rd place, the Porsche of Paolo Roberti. And the man who started the car, Gianluca Roda, Raffaele Giammaria, did a good middle stint, but he wasn't able to prevent the Ferrari 458 from escaping up the road. For 4th, Greg Franchi already home. We've seen him take the flag. And for 5th, Jean-Luc Bobelic, along with Ludovic Badet and Franck Morel, they've all done a good job in their respective stints in this car, are going to be not just 5th overall, but the winners of the Pro-Am Cup. The main aim really for them, but 5th overall, having led the race also in Badet's hands during the safety car interrupted first hour. A good effort, and the number 20 Ferrari 458, also the better place of the Sofrev ASP cars, comes over the line now. Jean-Luc Bobelic wins the Pro-Am Cup, and that has been a very good performance by all involved here in the 2nd round of the Blancpain Endurance Series. Fred Makovici is going to be 6th in the number 4. Aston Martin comes over the timing line now. Time lost early on, of course, with that drive-through penalty for Gilles Vannelet and Henri Moser in battles in traffic early on in the race. So the car is through for 6th. 7th is Albert Montano Taxis, and there for 8th place and 2nd in class, the Pro-Am Cup, is Paul van Splinteren, Louis Machiels and Nick Homerson. 9th, the Scuderia Vittoria, Matteo Bobbi, Giacomo Petrobelli and Carlos Iaconelli, 2 laps down in the end. And 10th, number 6, Ricardo Bravo, Lorenzo Pero de Vega and Duarte Felix da Costa. And the marshals wave all the flags they can find to say congratulations to the drivers after another fascinating 3 hours. The last hour, I think it is fair to say, dominated by the number 1 Ferrari. But we've had some great battling through the field, and the Lotuses have got themselves together for what's going to be in the end a 1-3 in class. Number 61, the Lawrence Frey, Rolf Maritz, Freddie Bath. Lotus wins the class from pole position. 2nd in class, Chris Ward, Jordan Tresson and Alex Buncombe. Nissan, troubled in the practice sessions yesterday, had an extra stop with a drama mid-race, so 2nd in class, a good result for them. And 3rd in the class will be number 70, Greg and Leo Mansell and Eduardo Piscopo, that was a lap leading at one stage but had that long pit stop for its gearbox problems. There's the car that wins the Gentleman Trophy, Fabien Michal and Georges Carbin. 2 in a row for Jolly Georges, because he was the man that won with Greg Guilbert, the class at Monza, in the opening round of the championship. And this $1 million grid making its way down the pit lane now. So 11 brands for this 2nd round of the championship, and we've had some very encouraging performances from the likes of the BMW Z4. It's a shame that it had that shock absorber problem, which cost it plenty of time, but that car has certainly got potential, and it's going to be one to watch later on in the season. So the cars making their way towards the Parc Ferme area at the top end of the pit lane, and there you can see Ferrari, Lamborghini, Nissan, and the one car that the race officials want particularly is the winner. But Michael Bartels has had a very gentle in-lap, so he's in the middle of the queue of cars coming up the pit lane. So the SRO officials are waving him in their direction. They want also the top 3 from GT4. That's going to take a little bit of sorting out, as there you can see the Ferrari 458 bookending that queue of cars. Lamborghini and Porsche join the queue as well, and a great reception for the winning drivers. Gianluca Roda sprinting towards Paolo Roberti's car to say congratulations on 3rd overall, as there is Felipe Albuquerque 2nd, and Michael Bartels parked between Audi and Porsche. Ferrari, a true sports car name, scores victory, and Nico Verdonk and Frank Kekler understandably delighted with that. Nico Verdonk there to congratulate Michael, who pats the roof of the car. Well done, he said to the car, and having been concerned about its reliability, really, what they desperately want is a win in the Spa 24 Hours this year, and the car was unreliable at Monza. Certainly done the job here. So Vita 4-1 takes overall honours and in the Pro Cup as well. Michael Bartels, Frank Kekler and Nico Verdonk from Felipe Albuquerque, Stefano Telli and Bert Langin, and then 3rd place Paolo Roberti, Gianluca Roda and Raffaele Gianmaria. The Pro-Am Cup won by number 20 Jean-Luc Bobelic, bringing the car home from number 2 Paul van Splinteren, and then number 6 in that class was the Duarte Felix da Costa driven Lamborghini in the last stint. Stefano Telli there saying well done to a rather warm looking German driver, Michael Bartels, who goes and congratulates the rest of his team. Job well done there. Relatively easy last hour, I think even Michael would contend with. Didn't have to push too hard. A lot of the work was done after the 2nd safety car period and into that middle stint of the race. So the drivers from Parc Ferme will make their way shortly up onto the podium, and then we have the podium ceremonies for the Pro Cup, for the Pro-Am Cup, the Gentleman Trophy and the GT4 Cup as well. We started the weekend with 31, 30 got to the grid, and in the end we had 21 still circulating, sorry, 23 still circulating at the end. So it was something of a rate of attrition here, and certainly more damage done to cars than we saw in the opening race at Monza. But it's been another intriguing round of the Blancpain Endurance Series, and the next one is going to be even more fascinating. We've seen what happens in 3 hours. 24 hours of Spa is next, then an evening race at Magny-Cours and Silverstone on the 9th of October to complete this first season for this new for 2011 championship. And SRO, in a sense, taking GT racing back to the future, because it was really like this that the BPR Global GT Championship started in the mid-1990s, 3 and 4 hour races for a real mix of pro drivers and many gentleman racers, some of whom have come back, in fact, into GT racing thanks to this new series. And it's been another successful SRO concept, and we have a very happy winning Ferrari team with Michael Bartels, the player manager, having brought the car home for the flag. Let's hear from him now.
Congratulations, Michael, what a win for the team.
Yes, basically after not so successful weekend in Monza, we brought the Ferrari to the end in the 3 hour race. I'm very happy because we all worked hard, the team, the drivers, we believed in it. So the second race in our hands, the car, 3 hours survived. So looking forward for the 24 hours.
Thank you. And Nico, I spoke to you earlier, you said how much of a pleasure it is to drive that Ferrari.
Absolutely. I must say, besides driving this car, the guys did a fantastic job. I mean, they've worked day and night, literally, to get the car back up to good performance, which we showed finally here. We knew that we could do it. It was just a question of time, and finally we were here in Navarra, and we finished the job.
Thank you. And Frank, happy to be on top after the bad luck you had in Monza?
Yeah, really, really happy. Somehow the Navarra circuit lights seems to like me. I won here last year in the GT1 and now again in the GT3. Well, I think so much thanks to the mechanics, because they had really, really hard days in the last weeks, or more nights, you know. They barely slept, and so I'm really, really happy for them.
Thank you.
Frank Kekler, Nico Vedonk, Michael Bartels, then the winning 3 drivers in round 2 of the Blancpain Endurance Series here from Navarra. Second over the line for the Belgian Audi club was Felipe Albuquerque, Stefan Ortelli and Bert Langevin. Porsche finishing in 3rd place, the Autolando sport car of Roda, Gianmaria and Roberti. 4th Audi, Franchitti, Piccini and Fassler. 5th, winning the Pro-Am Cup, Morel, Bobelik and Badet, and then Fred Makovici, Gilles Vanelay and Henri Moser in 6th. Lamborghini 7th, Ferrari 8th, Ferrari 9th, Lamborghini 10th, Porsche finishing 11th, and the older Ferrari 430 coming home in 12th place, the Michel Petit, Eric Jouet car. 13th, the troubled Ford GT, that lengthy pit stop at the start of the race, but having rejoined outside the top 20. 13th, not that bad. 14th for Valentini, Balesi and Gira after spins and drive-through penalties, with Fabien Michel and Georges Cabin 15th, winning the Gentleman Trophy. The BMW Z4 16th after its lengthy stop. 10 laps down, Polycon Guillard and Jus 17th ahead of Sunier, Renard and Hershey, who were in the gravel earlier on. And then 19th, the winning GT4 Lotus of Freddie Bath, Lawrence Fry and Rolf Maritz. And there you can see a number of the cars that didn't get as far as the checkered flag. The Ginetta that was up in flames, the 2 badly damaged Ferraris, and the alternator troubled Lamborghini that lost an engine in qualifying. Didn't get to the end either, with the alternator problem stopping the car very early on. Big disappointment for Peter Cox, but also big disappointment for Mark Hayek, the CEO of championship sponsor Blancpain. Pro Cup looks like this then. The top 4, as overall, up to 5th in class though, comes the Hexis AMR entry. That's the Fred Makovici, Gilles Vanelay, Henri Moser Aston Martin that finishes 5th in the Pro Cup for the pro drivers only. 6th being Eugenio Amos, Nicholas Malhoff and Albert von Thurn Taxis, Petrobelli, Bobby and Iaconelli 7th ahead of the Ford GT. But of the other classes, the Pro-Am Trophy, Pro-Am Cup, very competitive indeed this weekend, and Ludovic Badet, having taken the car into the lead of the race early on, doing a very good job for his 2 co-drivers, Franck Morel and Jean-Luc Bobelik, to come through and to score the victory, with 2nd Paul van Splunteren, Nick Homerson and Louis Machiels, and finishing 3rd in that class, Roberto Bravo, Clati Felix da Costa and Lorenzo de Vega. This is the top 3 overall, and indeed in the Pro Cup. You can see with the spectacles, Raffaele Gianmaria, Gianluca Roda in the middle, Paolo Roberti next to him. For 2nd place, out comes Bert Langevin, Stefan Ortelli and Felipe Albuquerque, the Portuguese driver then for the Belgian Audi club, finishing in 2nd place. But the biggest cheer of all, I suspect, from down in the pit lane is going to be reserved for the race winners. Here they come for Vita 4-1, Frank Kekler, Nico Verdonk are there. Michael Bartels victorious here at Navarra. Handshakes all round, and the two young guns and an old pro when it comes to winning in GT races make their way to the top step of the podium here at the Spanish Circuit of Navarra. So the winning drivers atop the podium here at the Circuit de Navarra have had the national anthem of the winning team, Vita 4-1, and now the trophies are going to be presented to the top three teams, starting with the Auto Orlando Sport team. There's Gianluca Roda in the middle, Paolo Roberti and Raffaele Giammaria flanking him, and Michel Ligenet, the man that runs the Navarra circuit and a former GT racer himself, and also a former historic racer, the man making the presentations. And with Michael Bartels then taking his team to a race win, along with Nico Verdonk and Frank Kekler, from Haley Coxon and David Addison here. For now, it's goodbye.